Okay, good evening, and apologies for the slightly delayed start. I'd like to welcome everyone, members, officers, and members of the public to this meeting of the Planning Control Committee. Before the meeting starts, I'd like to invite the committee member and scrutiny manager to explain how proceedings will work. James.
Thank you, Chair. For members, if a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on your microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the Chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the Chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can speak. When the public participants are invited to speak, their microphones will be made live by the committee officer. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room, and the result will be visible on the YouTube stream. In the event of a tied vote this evening, the Chair will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before we proceed with the meeting? Great. Back to you then, Chair.
Thanks, James. Item 1, apologies for absence. So there have been no apologies for absence received, and I think we've got a full house of the committee. Item 2, minutes of the meetings 24th of February, 12th of March, and 19th of March 2026. We have 3 sets of minutes for approval at tonight's meeting. Unless members object, I propose that we take all 3 sets together for approval. A reminder that if you were not present at one of these meetings, you should abstain from voting on the approval. I propose that we take as read and approve the minutes of the meetings of the committee held on 24th of February, 12th of March, and 19th of March 2026. May I have a seconder? Councillor Billing, thank you. Do we have any comments on the minutes? No. Excellent. And then can we move to a vote to approve? Stop doing that, Tom. Can we move to a vote to approve the minutes? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Thank you, James. Item 3, notification of other business. There is none. Item 4, Chair's announcements. 1, recording. In accordance with Council policy, this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be available both on the Council's YouTube channel as well as on the Council's ModGov site alongside the documents from this meeting. 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminders about this and speaking rights is set out under the Chair's announcements on the agenda. 3, to clarify matters for the registered speakers. Thank you for the members of the public for joining us this evening. To confirm, speakers will each have 5 minutes to make their verbal presentations to the committee. All speakers will receive a warning when you have 1 minute remaining. Following the conclusion of your time, members will be invited to ask points of clarification. At the end of your allotted time, you'll be advised that the time allowed has ended. 4, debate procedure. In order to move to a debate on an item, we will require a proposer and seconder for a motion at the appropriate time in the meeting. This should take into account the information in the officer's report and will follow the officer's presentation and any public presentations, including member advocates, as well as any questions of the officer and points of clarification to the public presenters. As a reminder for members, should you wish to propose a motion contrary to the recommendations included in the officer report, you'll be required to provide clear and evidence reasons for this proposal. Section 4.8.23a. For the purposes of clarification, in order to vote on an item at this meeting, a member must be present for the entirety of the debate and consideration for that item. If a member leaves the room at any point of the item, they will not be able to vote. Meeting cut-off. As outlined under 4.8.24g of the Council's Constitution, if the meeting proceeds to 10:30 p.m, the item being considered at that time will be the final item considered at tonight's meeting. The remaining business will be deferred to the next meeting on Tuesday, the 21st of April, 2026. Planning training, 19th of May, 2026. A training session will be delivered by the Planning Office Society. A training session to be delivered by the Planning Office Society has been arranged for members on Tuesday, the 19th of May, 2026 from 7 to 9 p.m. This will be a valuable session, and it's important that members intending to sit on the Planning Control Committee in the 2026-27 civic year attend. If you have any questions about the training session, please contact committee services. Item 5, public participation. For item 6, I have Councillor Amy Allen, Councillor Sean Nolan, Helen Pearson, Phil Rogers, somewhere? Yep, Phil. Maddie Wild, and Richard Clayton. Lovely, thank you. For item 7, I have Councillor Graham Lee, Parish Councillor Graham Lee, Councillor Lee, Clive Hall, Councillor Tom Tyson, hiding in the front row, and Stuart Booth. Stuart. And for item 8, I have Parish Councillor Graham Swan, Clive Hall, and Louise Simmons. Lovely. Item 6. So we can move on to item 6, which is application 2400326FP, land on Campfield Way, Letchworth Garden City, Hertfordshire. Sarah Kasparian to present. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. You will have seen my written update, which makes some corrections to my report for completeness. But in particular, I wanted to note that the applicant has agreed to the pre-commencement conditions, and so Part C of my recommendation can be deleted. I do have another update. The housing mix set out in paragraph 4.8 is outdated. It should read 45 one-bed flats rather than 40, 43 two-bed flats rather than 57, and there'll be no three-bed flats. This was changed when the plans were amended to address the design considerations, and the mix put in my paragraph 5.2.9 is correct. On to my presentation, please. Cool, thank you. This is the application site. It covers the entirety of Campfield Way and Hiver Road, as well as units 49 to 75 Icknield Way. The site sits to the south of Icknield Way and to the north of the railway line and railway cutting. The site is between another residential area of Martin Way and Fernhill Secondary School. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view of the site. You can see the metal roofs of the Hawksley bungalows in a characteristic layout of the Garden City, as well as the red tile roofs of the masonettes along Icknield Way. Next slide, please. This is a map showing the conservation area of Letchworth with a thin red line around the boundary. You can see how extensive the conservation area is for the town. Next slide, please. And this is the boundary around the application site, with the yellow showing the part of the application site within the conservation area. Next slide, please. On to some photos. This is a view just off Icknield Way, looking southwards into Hiver Road, and you can see the bungalows in the distance. Next slide, please. This is a Google Street View image of the other end of Hiver Road, where it meets the footbridge that goes over the railway line. The footbridge is part of the Letchworth Greenway, and it is maintained by the Highway Authority. Next slide, please. This is another street view image of Hiver Road. You can see the spacious road layout with on-street parking, highway verges and mature street trees. There's currently a very low level of density across the site due to the single-storey nature of the buildings. All the existing street trees need to be removed to enable the redevelopment, which changes the street layout. These are fruit trees and they're mature, reaching the end of their natural life. The proposed landscaping scheme shows good replacement planting, for including new trees. Next slide, please. It's another view of Campfield Way, turning with Campfield Way on the left and Icknield Way up ahead. Next slide, please. This is a view along Campfield Way with substantial areas of highway verge. Next slide. This is also on Campfield Way, an example of units which have been empty for some time. The applicant has evidence how the buildings have long exceeded their life expectancy. The bungalows were intended to last 50 years, and as a temporary post-war housing solution, the buildings suffer from installation problems which have caused mould and damp issues. Next slide. This is another view of boarded up bungalows. I a bungalow, which have been subject to antisocial behaviour. Next slide. Next slide, please. And this is a view along Icknield Way of the Masonettes, which are within the application site boundary and outside of the conservation area. This will be the main frontage of the new development, and urban design officers, as well as the design review panel process, has worked with the applicant and their architects to enhance the plans and have a design that will reflect a modern interpretation of Garden City principles. Next slide. This is the last photo, which brings us back to the corner of Highover Way with Icknield Way. This is a view of number 77, which is excluded from the red line, but you can see the masonettes beyond. The street trees here are within the application site boundary and are to be retained along this part. Next slide. So this is the proposed site plan showing the roof plan of the building layout. The applicant engaged in pre-application discussions to comply with policy SP9 as the gross increase in units is over the threshold. The site is particularly sensitive as it relates to existing development in a conservation area, and so the replacement layout and design of the new buildings is especially important. You can see that the two-road layout is to be replaced with a kind of dual road layout, which increases the density and makes better use of the land. There will be only one vehicular access, which was established early on with the Highway Authority as being appropriate for the level of number, the number of units proposed. Next slide, please.
So can I ask you to just speak up? I think the people at the back are probably struggling.
Sure, sorry. This is the building type site plan. You can see that the flatted development in the larger blue blocks across the site. There are several building types used depending on the context around the site. The yellowy coloured buildings are houses at 2, 1.5 and single-storey units. All houses have their own parking, amenity spaces and comply with internal space standards. The brown blocks relate to bin and cycle storage. Next slide, please. This is the parking strategy. The more colourful parking spaces show association with a particular block of flats. Next slide. This is the refuse strategy, showing curbside bin collection for all units in accordance with the developer guidance for waste collection. Next slide. I'll show you some of the plans, but not all of them because it's a lot. This is block R, which will front onto Icknield Way. I'm showing an elevation there and a visualisation only. Urban design officers had good input into this final plan for this block. And we discussed things like the gables and the brick details, the nature of the bin storage on the top left-hand side, and the balcony design. Next slide, please. This is an example of a 1.5-storey home along the boundary with the properties of Martin Way. These form a mix of 3 and 4 bedroom homes, with 1 bedroom being on the ground floor. The external design reflects a modern take on the Garden City principles and design features, using small dormer windows, brick detailing, and the gable roof form. Next slide, please. That is a visualisation of that house type. Next slide, please. This is another example. It's a terrace of 2-storey houses and comprising 2 and 3 bedroom homes. You can see an alleyway designed into the ground floor between units to provide access to rear gardens, which is a Garden City solution to an issue of garden access. Next slide, please. And that's a visualisation of that house type with the arched entrance to the front door, brick detail and chimney design. Next slide. This is the amenity strategy site plan, and the colours distinguish between public and private amenity space around all new buildings. The blue relates to blocks of flats, and the more dull colour green relates to public amenity spaces, including the triangular shaped highway verge, which is currently what we see on the site, and a more formal drainage and play area, roughly in the middle there. Next slide, please. This is the landscape master plan, which shows more detail on the types of landscaping across the site. Next slide, please. Last one. This is an example of the detail regarding hard and soft landscaping and boundary treatment, showing brick walls in yellow and timber fencing in blue. There will be a few types of hard standing to distinguish the purpose and role of that space. So that's the end of my presentation. And to conclude, while the site is within the Letchworth Conservation Area, the proposals include the demolition of all the Hawksley bungalows, as well as the masonettes along Icknield Way. And the proposals would cause less than substantial harm to the conservation area, which is outweighed by public benefits. The substantial benefits of the scheme include the provision of 100% affordable housing across the site, of which a minimum 51% will be for social rent, the master planning of the site and the quality of the urban design, and the sustainability and ecological credentials of the proposals all demonstrably outweigh the harm. I therefore recommend the grant of planning permission, subject to the suitable legal agreement and conditions set out in my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Before I open questions, I am going to remind the planning committee we have 3 quite substantial items tonight. So if we could keep questions as questions and points of clarification as points of clarification, because we will have a point to debate it later on in the item. So do members have any questions for the planning officer? Councillor Mantle, Ian.
2 questions. My memory serves me right. This area was included in the conservation area to preserve the Hawksley bungalows. I take it from the report that there's now beyond redemption. But have any proposals been made to retain at least one of them as a sample? I'm thinking, for example, there's a museum I know which has a bungalow, an aluminium bungalow in it, preserved. And that's
Yes.
I have a second question.
Sure. Yeah, the area was included as a later addition, or the last addition to the conservation area. It is its own character area because it is very distinctive. I think obviously it is unique because of the social purpose that it played at that time post-war, and the type of buildings that are there, which broadly reflects some Garden City principles, not all of them, some of them. And it is unique. So that's why it was included. And as group value, it does have heritage value. I think it's a shame that they can't be retained because the condition that they're in is too far gone, and individually they don't have their own heritage value. So I think the applicant did look at the retention of one of the units. I think it's difficult because some units have things that are good about them, and they're not good about them. The good bits that are left are maybe spread around a few of the units. Combining them into one unit would be difficult. But I think the main point is that the buildings are beyond their life expectancy. They were only expected to last 50 years, and we're now 76 odd years down the line. So yeah, it's kind of that's the view.
I was wondering about removing one of them to one of these, so rebuild historic museums like Chilterns or the Weald Downland.
I think the applicant might be able to elaborate a little bit on that, if you want to say that.
Well, can I just throw that in as a suggestion? The other question, in your report you refer to a good bus service. What do you mean by a good bus service?
There are buses that go along Icknield Way.
I know, 1 an hour Monday to Saturday daytime. So our local bus service.
Mhm.
And I just wondered if that was really good enough
I
to
think in the
encourage people to abandon their cars.
I think in the context of the town, it's a good. I mean, it's not very good, but it's a good bus level provision. Just to have a bus and a bus service is good. So from the highways perspective, so it's the more people you have, the better the service could be. Should get more.
Well, it's a
people
contract service anyway, county contract. And it was recently reduced from 2 buses an hour to 1.
I don't think I can comment anymore.
Okay, I think we can agree there is a bus service, but clearly with some we can
Yes.
debate the quality of it.
Yes, it was just the use of the word good in the report that was concerning me.
Understood, Councillor Mantle, for sure. Was that you finished with the questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Councillor Louise Peace. Louise.
Thank you, Chair. So picking up that theme, at 5, 6, 12 in your report, you say that the parking spaces are below standard. And the highways officer doesn't consider this to be unreasonable. Could you perhaps tell us what the number of parking spaces should be to meet standard? And I understood that parking was a local authority, our decision, and was not to do with highways. It's up to us whether it meets standard or not.
So the Highway Authority do offer advice, so we'd take it. I think it is lower for flats than the standard requires, but I think because there's a lot of one-bedroom flats, the proportion can be lower. There is provision for visitor spaces throughout, so overall it's a bit lower than it should be. But for the urban area, I think it's acceptable. And they are providing a lot of cycle parking, so that kind of balances out. As if you've got a good provision of cycle parking, that would balance out a lower provision of car parking.
Did you want to come back, Louise?
I just wondered if we knew exactly sort of how many spaces we were short, because this seemed to be coming up in the responses from the public that they were worried about parking. So I just wondered how short it technically was.
I don't know I can look it up and come back to you, and the applicant might also be able to respond. I'll check.
Thanks. And thanks, Sarah. Councillor Ruth Brown. Ruth.
It's clear to me from your pictures and from your report that many of those bungalows are no longer occupied. Are there any that are still occupied, and how many people are still residing in this area, and how many households? What sort of percentage? Are there still a lot of people living there?
I think it's around 50%. Again, the applicant will be able to.
Okay, I'll ask the applicant. Yeah,
but yeah, I think they've slowly been decanting people to enable the development to take place.
Okay, thank you.
I think some of them may be in the room. Councillor Claire Billing.
Yeah, on page 84, you're talking about the noise from the rail where there's an additional requirement. Is that something that's been agreed with the applicant, the soundproofing?
Yeah, that came from the National Rail to make sure that the new homes will be of a suitable standard. So let me just check. Yeah, so the condition 20, noise from transport, says no development above groundworks. So that the applicant needs to submit a scheme for protecting the proposed dwellings from noise from transport sources in particular. So they need to review what they've already submitted and then submit more details to make sure that that is protected. And that will be reviewed by the environmental health officer.
Thank you. Councillor Tom Tyson.
Thanks, Chair. So I was just looking at the sustainability statement in the pack and noted that there were some quite good pledges about electric heating and heat pumps and energy efficiencies, but I didn't see anything about solar panels. Did I miss something there, or is there no proposal to include solar panels on the roofs of the new builds?
I don't believe there is, because probably due to the conservation area status, but I think heat pumps are very efficient and basically replace a boiler, so that would be sufficient to meet the energy requirements of the bungalows. And I believe there'll be no gas on the site either, so it'll be purely from the heat pumps.
Okay, I have no further. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I have the development conservation manager, Sean.
No, it's all right. I just thought I'd point out to members that as of 24th of March, the government set regulations into place that come into force on the 24th of March 2027, requiring new homes in England to produce 75 to 80% less carbon, with mandatory low carbon heating and solar panels. So that will be a requirement through building regulations come March 2027. So that's something members may wish to take into account. Thank you.
Okay. No other officers going to sneak up on me? No. We're good. And no members. In which case, I will call first public speaker. I have Richard Claydon. Richard, you have 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have a minute left in your time.
Good evening. This statement, which is in support of the planning application, is from Stephen Fish, who is the chair of Hawksley Resident Steering Group. Is read out by myself, Richard Clayton, decanted resident of 11 Campfield Way. As a long life resident, I have made fond memories of our estate and my bungalow, but I recognise that time has come for renewal. These homes have been wonderful places to live, offering comfort and a strong sense of community over the years, but they no longer meet modern living standards and they cannot be cost efficient refurbished. The proposed regeneration provides an opportunity to create warm, efficient and secure homes within an attractive green environment that respects Letchworth's heritage and community spirit. I fully support the redevelopment as a positive step towards a safer, more sustainable and vibrant neighbourhood in the future. Stephen Fish. I will also read a statement on behalf of Judy Baldock, a decanted tenant from 30 Campfield Way. Having lived in one of the bungalows in Campfield Way for over 10 years, I can safely say they are no longer fit for purpose and a new proposal of housing is a must. I agree they have an historic legacy, but for people to live within the carbon footprint in the future, more modern housing is needed. They may look okay from the outside, but internally, mould and leaks have been appearing more often. They are also very cold in the winter months, making fuel costs very expensive for the residents with their thin, uninsulated walls. Several tenants who have moved out temporarily, myself included, are looking forward to moving back to a new, more comfortable home in a better designed neighbourhood. This will also provide a new housing for the most in need of safe, secure accommodation from the council's waiting list. So I'm 100% supporting the proposal for the new housing. Judy Baldock. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you. Does the committee have any points of clarification, Richard? No? Okay. Then may I call on the member advocate supporters? I've got Councillor Amy Allen and Councillor Sean Nolan. You've got 5 minutes between. Are you going to run straight through? Do you want in? I'll trust you. Go on.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening to the committee members. The scheme to redevelop Campfield Way and Hyber Road has the potential to be transformational for so many residents. Trebling the site's social housing stock and modernising these homes is necessary for our ward. In ensuring that these outcomes deliver for future residents, we simply want to ensure the process will not overtly impact those who currently live locally. Primarily, we would like the Construction Traffic and Environmental Management Plan, Section 4.5, to specify that there will be no parking allowed by construction traffic associated with the works on Icknield Way or associated roads. Alongside this, we would like confirmation of how parking will be managed during the different phases of the construction programme. Icknield Way is a busy through route, already struggling with parking, with the recent welcome addition of double yellow lines near the Wilbury Recreation Ground, assisting sight lines but reducing further parking options. We also want to ensure that construction traffic does not use parking up any side roads, as these are generally already heavily used as it is. Secondly, we would like confirmation of land ownership on site. This is a vital project that we wish to see undertaken as soon as possible. However, there are concerns that have been raised that the full site is not yet fully owned by Settled Paradigm. We'd just like the confirmation that the process is underway to ensuring that land ownership has been settled. I'll now hand over to Councillor Allen.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm speaking in support of this application, which will bring much needed social housing to our area. I see both as a councillor and in my day job the significant impact the lack of available social housing is having on residents. I know from my conversations with residents in such need that this is a welcome development. This potential development, since its proposal, has been a much more positive process over the last couple of years, with much better community engagement than we saw with similar proposal over a decade ago, and I think that's made a real difference. I do have one key ask. I'd really like to see safe access to the bridge maintained during the construction phase, potentially via Martin's Way if that's possible. That bridge is an important route for local residents, particularly school children and those accessing the allotments. Without it, people are looking at a diversion of around 25 to 30 minutes via Horrisgate Gardens and Burnell Rise, which is a significant detour. So I'd ask that every effort is made to keep a safe, practical route open to that bridge and throughout the build. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Do members have any points of clarification from the member advocates? No? Okay. Then I will call, I have the applicant, their agent and representative. I've got Helen Pearson, Maddie Wild and Phil Rogers. Are you all speaking or? Okay, fine. But you're all able to answer questions or whatever because you're all registered. Okay. In your time.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Helen Pearson. I'm speaking as Head of Regeneration on behalf of Settle Paradigm. This proposal is not just about buildings, it's about people. Across North Hertfordshire, over 2,100 households are currently waiting for a home, and demand for adaptable and accessible housing is increasing. This is why we are particularly proud that this is a 100% affordable housing scheme, with 2/3 of the homes delivered to M42 and M43 standards. Overall, this scheme delivers 69 additional affordable homes, helping to meet need identified locally, whilst also ensuring that existing residents who wish to return are able to do so. These are homes that will genuinely change lives, supporting independence, improving accessibility, and allowing residents to feel secure about their future. At Settle Paradigm, we believe a home is far more than 4 walls and a roof. It's where children grow up, families put down roots, and older residents feel safe and supported. Good quality housing underpins health, well-being and opportunity, and it is this belief that drives our mission to provide homes that offer a strong foundation on which people can build their lives. We achieve this by building new homes, investing in our existing stock, and where homes have reached the end of their natural life, regenerating estates. The site at Campfield Way is one such example. The existing homes were only ever intended to last around 60 years. At 75 years old, they've served their community well for over half a century, but they are now at the end of their viable lifespan. We must therefore look ahead to the next 60 years and beyond. Regeneration here offers an opportunity not simply to replace failing homes, but to deliver something better. Homes that meet modern standards, respond to current housing needs, provide long-term benefit for future generations. The application before you therefore seeks planning permission for the demolition of the 60 Hawksley bungalows within Character Area 8 of the Conservation Area, together with the adjacent 28 flats on Icknield Way, to enable the comprehensive redevelopment of the estate. The proposal will deliver 157 high-quality and affordable homes on this brownfield site. Historic England consider that a robust case has been made for their replacement, recognising the importance of delivering affordable housing and supporting regeneration where buildings have reached the end of life. Residents are engaged with constantly through resident steering groups, weekly coffee mornings and one-to-ones, and they too recognise the opportunity this scheme presents and have broadly accepted the need to redevelop. Throughout the design process, we've carefully considered both resident needs and the conservation area. Officers and the design review panel have been engaged proactively and iteratively to ensure the scheme responds appropriately to its surroundings. All homes will meet or exceed national space standards and will benefit from private external amenity space. The scheme includes new landscaped green areas across the site, including a centrally located play area, the position of which was established in consultation with residents. The homes will also exceed Part L regulations by 51%, delivering high levels of energy efficiency and reduced fuel costs. The scheme will also deliver over 8% biodiversity net gain on site, including the planting of 339 new trees, with the remaining balance secured off-site. We did not reach the decision to regenerate these homes lightly. We explored all options, including significant investment. However, with costs exceeding £200,000 per property for homes with poor insulation, unsuitable foundations and ongoing damp and mould issues, refurbishment is not a viable long-term solution. The choice was clear: continue investing in homes that cannot meet modern standards, or invest in a sustainable future where residents can thrive. Doing nothing is not an option. A simpler like-for-like replacement was considered, but this is a missed opportunity. The site is capable of delivering so much more homes, more affordability and wider public benefit. Meanwhile, existing residents are living on an estate that's now more than half empty. Boarded up homes, loss of neighbourly surveillance and rising ASB have eroded the sense of community. Some residents have had to move temporarily earlier than we would ordinarily wish. Despite this, residents have waited patiently, but they deserve much better. That is why regeneration matters. It's not about taking something away, it's about giving something back. It's about delivering modern, safe and sustainable homes that meet today's needs and create an opportunity for the residents of tomorrow. I ask you to not only look at the buildings proposed, but the outcomes the scheme will deliver. Officers have concluded that the harm to the conservation area would be less than substantial, and that this is clearly outweighed by the significant public benefits for development. For that reason, we respectfully ask that you accept the officer recommendation and grant planning approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do members have any points of clarification? Councillor Stanley, Dave.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you very much. Can I just check? You touched on it, but can I just check that existing residents, those that are left, will be given first refusal on the new homes? And also, can I just check one of the member advocates mentioned about the ownership of the site? Can I just confirm what the status is of that, please?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We've decanted about 50% of the site at this time, and we started the decant early on this site because of the needs of those residents and the limited supply that's available to us. We've worked really closely with the resident steering group to agree a formal residents charter, which is our offer to resident. It provides all residents with a right to return, an offer of a home to directly meet their needs, which might be different to what they've got, what they're living in at the moment. It provides an opportunity to split families where there is a grown-up adult child living at home, so they can have an independent property themselves. So they all get that right to return, even those that have already moved off. We have got some who have signed and said then they're not going to come back, and we'll work with them as well. But all those that want to can indeed come back. I should also note we're also working with the freeholders and the leaseholders on the site to buy back their homes. In answer to your other point, they're all now in agreement. We've not concluded buyback of all of those homes, but we are working with all of the residents to buy them back at the appropriate stage.
Thank you. Councillor Billing.
I just wanted to ask about the other two things that the member advocates mentioned: parking of construction traffic and the bridge over the train track.
The bridge over the train track falls outside of the site and is under separate ownership. It is going to be kept open for students who will be going between schools, and there's going to be a secure passageway maintained for those during that phase one of the development before it opens fully.
Shall I just add that we've worked really closely with the two schools to agree the principles as to how that will work. Their main concern was that some of the sixth form students travel between the two sites during the working day, so that the detour was going to be too long and was going to have an impact on their education. So we've worked really closely with their meetings at the school to agree to keep that open. It will be a fobbed access, so those students that need it have access during construction hours, and it will be locked at other times, so we don't create an area for antisocial behaviour outside of site operation. Unfortunately, we do have to close that access during construction because the existing highway is moving and the existing route of the Greenway. We've looked at lots of options and done everything we can to try and minimise that as far as possible, and it will only be closed during the construction of the phase one works, which will be the Highover Road works, not the Campfield, and so we'll open by the time we get to redeveloping Campfield Way and Hickneld Flats.
And traffic?
Parking, yeah.
Yes, so all of the construction workers will be encouraged to use sustainable modes of transport, but in terms of their actual parking, it will be on the actual site. It won't be along Icknield Way.
Okay. Councillor Lewis Peace. Lewis.
Yep. So we've heard lots of problems about the bungalows, and it's really clear why they need to be replaced. I just wonder what the rationale was for replacing the maisonettes, and could you confirm that Settle Paradigm own the land where the maisonettes are? Because there was a red line map that looks like you didn't. So if you could just clarify that.
Yeah, of course. So those flats are included as well because we have similar problems, although they're not homes that were built temporarily as the bungalows were. We have similar problems with damp and mould, a lot of problems with sound transmission as well in those flats. The site is owned by us on a leasehold basis. So we're working with the Heritage Foundation to agree development on that area of the site, but we've engaged with them and they support the application.
Thank you. Councillor Caroline McDonald. Caroline.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to the point of the ownership of the site. And after the build is done, will Settle be looking after the maintenance of the grounds of the entire site, even though some of those houses will be part by?
Yes, so some of the homes will be sold as shared ownership homes. So the residents of those homes will be responsible for the maintenance of their own home and garden, but Settle will remain freeholder for the entirety of the site. Yeah, or Settle Paradigm, I should say, as we are now.
You only slipped up at the end. It's fine. Councillor Ruth Brown. Ruth.
Can I just ask what provision has been made for the remaining residents on site to move out, and how local that's likely to be, and for how long, and over what period you're going to be moving people out? Because obviously the community thing's important to those residents. I guess I gather they support it, but I just wanted to know what provision you'd made.
Work really closely with the residents, and this is challenging for a lot of them, and we absolutely recognise the impact that this has on people's lives. The intention is to build this scheme out in 2 phases, as I touched on a moment ago. So Highover Road first, so that's our priority at the moment for decant. So we're focusing on moving those residents out so that we can get vacant possession of that site, build that out, and then the residents will move back in and over from Campfield Way before we start on phase 2. Apologies, I've missed the rest of the question.
How local? I mean, I mean, it must be quite difficult to find properties to locate these people to. So how local will they be, and how will you help to maintain that sense of community they have whilst the construction works ongoing?
Yeah, sorry, apologies. Yeah, so we did quite a lot of work a couple of years ago to reduce the decants to ensure that as fewer people as possible could move once and move directly into their new home and not have to move off-site. Obviously, there are a lot that need to move off-site. We're working with our lettings team and with all the individuals one-on-one to find suitable accommodation for them, identifying exactly what their needs are, taking into account where they want to live, where their support networks are, to try and make this as easy as possible for them. There are, I think it's 6 or 7 families, I think, left on Highover Road that we're now working to decant. So our lettings team are working with them closely. So we're trying to make it as easy as we possibly can for them.
Thank you.
Yep. Right, I have no other questions. Can I ask the officer to respond to any of the issues raised? Sarah.
Thank you. On the parking, I wanted to confirm that it's 26 spaces short of the standard for individual properties. There is also a requirement for visitor spaces, but there would be 27 visitor spaces. So that almost kind of balances out the basic requirement. There is also a car club space on the site, so there'll be that facility for people to use, rather than possibly having their own parking. So yeah, it's kind of all in the planning balance, really, that dynamic. And I wanted you've already asked the applicant about the construction, traffic and parking arrangements and the footbridge arrangements, which did come up early on in the process of the planning application, and the applicant did go away and do quite a lot of work with the school. So I just want to reiterate that we have explored the options on that. And again, it's a balance of all the issues, and because it's the footbridge would be closed only for phase one. I think it's the best solution that we'll get, because the site has to be closed during that first phase of construction. But keeping it open for students is great. So yeah, it's all in the balance. That was all I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for our planning officer? No? Okay. So the officer's recommendation is to grant permission. Unless members are minded to propose a different recommendation on this item, along with material planning reasons, I should be proposing that we grant permission. Therefore, I propose that we grant planning permission subject to A, the completion of a satisfactory legal agreement and the applicant agreeing to extend the statutory period in order to complete the agreement, if required. Okay, I'm going to pause slightly if there's anyone else who wants to leave at this point. Okay. B, providing delegated powers to the development and conservation manager to finalise an NHS contribution and to update conditions and informatives with minor amendments as required. And C, conditions as set out in the report. May I have a seconder? Councillor Fernandez.
Happy to second and reserve my right to speak, Chair.
Sorry, sorry if I'm normally staring at you. Normally complain because I'm always staring. We have a mover and a seconder. Debate. Do we have any debate? Councillor Brown.
It seems to me that this scheme has been well thought through. It's had input from the design review panel. It's had a lot of work with local partners. There are obviously some residents who are understandably distressed at the thought of having to move out of their long-term homes, which is hence why I wanted to know what provision is being made for them. But I think overall in the balance, this is a better solution for everyone. It's providing a net gain of 69 dwellings and 100% affordable, and the number of social rent as well. These houses are desperately needed across our district, and therefore I think we should approve it without any further hesitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Winstanley. Dave.
Yeah, kind of pretty much what Ruth said. It's obviously sad on one hand to be, what is being lost, and that people are, losing their homes that they've lived in forever. But now is the time to, to upgrade the site. Yes, it would be nice if one could be kept in a museum somewhere, but because obviously it's a historic piece of architecture, and the story behind it is amazing. But yeah, as been said in the report, they're no longer generally, there might be some exceptions, but they're generally no longer fit for purpose. So now is the time to modernise and increase the supply on the site. Totally will be supporting this.
Okay. Thank you. So we have a proposal to grant permission for the application. May I see those? May we vote on the application? I always mess that bit up. Oh, sorry. I need to have a script for that bit. No, I know what to say.
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried unanimously.
We will pause at this point if there's any members of the public who want to leave, and obviously if the applicants wish to leave. I think we've got a consensus. We'll pause for 5 minutes if that's okay, if anyone wants a comfort break, because I do. Okay, we wired for sound. Lovely. Item 7 is application 25-02547 FP, land to the south and east of Sinuna Park, Station Road, Ashwell. Councillor Tyson to withdraw. Councillor Tyson, I believe, is withdraw from the committee and move to the public speaking gallery and act as a member advocate objector.
Thank you, Chair.
Off you
Yes,
go.
that's correct.
I think what we usually hear to stay till they speak and then we ask them to leave. Still don't think we've got that entirely. Okay. May I ask Anne MacDonald to? Oh, sorry. Councillor May. Councillor May.
Thank you. Yeah, I need to declare an interest as well because my husband is a conservator of the conservators of Thurfield Heath and Greens, and you'll see from the supplementary papers that they've made an application for contributions as part of this application. So I'll leave the room and come back for the next item. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We promised to bring you back, I can assure you. Thanks, James. Spotted. Right. And then there were 10. Anyone else? In which case, I will call on Anne MacDonald to present. Anne.
Chair, and good evening, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to draw your attention to the update that's been posted on the website. This covers 6 matters. Of note is the revised recommendation and the matter of the Thurfield Heath SSSI 5.8 kilometre zone of influence, which the application site does sit within and is not mentioned in the committee report. I acknowledge and apologise for this error and can confirm that both Natural England and the Conservators of Thurfield Heath have now been consulted. The Thurfield Heath SSSI mitigation strategy is dated November 2022 and seeks, under the provisions of the Local Plan Policy SP7 Infrastructure Requirements and Developer Contributions, for a financial contribution from new housing development within the 5.8 kilometre zone to help protect the heath from the impact from people using the heath for recreation, with the logic being that new residents create a higher population in the area, which will result in more use of the heath. As the case officer, I have no objection to seeking a financial contribution on this basis, and the request has been put to the applicant, who has agreed the principle of this, but not the final amount at this time. The supplementary planning documents, planning obligations, states a paragraph 8.3.3. This approach may require schemes to make provision for and/or contributions towards 1. Enhanced open space provision within the development scheme. 2. Contributions towards provision or projects within the SSSI to be delivered in agreement with Natural England and/or the Conservators of Thurfield Heath. And 3. Alternative recreation provision or projects within Royston and the surrounding area that provide alternate open space, leisure routes and/or recreational opportunities. The amended recommendation, as set out in the update, allows for the contribution towards the SSSI to be included in the recommendation before the committee tonight. Can we now move to the presentation, please? Thank you. This is a full planning application for 36 homes on land outside of the settlement boundary, on land classed as rural area beyond the greenbelt. The application site is to the lower left side of this site and adjoins the Senua Park development on its east and north side and south sides of the wood, and extends the north and south side of the wood plantation. The Senua Park development is now largely complete and is also outside of the settlement boundary, but adjoining it on its northern side. This development was refused by the local planning authority and was allowed at appeal. Next slide, please. This is the proposed planning layout for the development. As this is not an allocated housing site, this is land outside the settlement boundary. This is a speculative application where the key consideration is whether the planning benefit of delivering 36 new homes, given that the local planning authority has only 2.6 years of identified 5-year land supply, would be significantly and demonstrably outweighed by any identified harms. As set out in the report, the application is offering 14 homes as affordable housing, which is a 40% contribution. Although the offered affordable housing does not fully meet local need, the proposed dwelling mix is 6 1-beds, 6 2-beds, 4 3-bed, 18 4-bed, and 2 5-bed homes. Whilst there is a mix of dwellings proposed, there are more larger homes proposed which does not meet locally identified need as set out in the Ashwell Neighbourhood Plan. All the homes meet or exceed the nationally described space standards. All have off-street parking, and apart from the 1-bed flats, all have private amenity space. As can be seen from this plan, there's a large area of public open space, and the site will connect well with existing local footpaths on Station Road on the south and small gains on the north side of the site. The affordable homes are located at the front of the site in a layout that is to replicate a farmstead layout, and the rest of the houses are in hedged gardens with a high degree of landscaping around the boundaries of the site to form a soft edge to the development. The internal roadway goes through the wood. 24 live and 2 dead trees are to be felled to allow for this. The application is proposing to plant back 143 trees across the site as both compensation for this loss and to ensure BNG enhancements. Excuse me. Please note the location of plot 32 in the lower far right corner of the site and plot 23, which is in the top right corner of the site, as I will be showing the elevations of these houses in this presentation. Next slide, please. This shows in the proposed aerial view to show how the development will fit into the local context. Next slide, please. These are the elevations for the frontage farmhouse style building, which comprises 4 1-bed flats. The external design and materials palette matches the new homes in Senua Park. Next slide, please. This is the floor plan for that building. Next slide, please. This is the elevations for the bungalows on the east side of the entrance into the site and will sit roughly opposite the building that I've just shown you. Next slide, please. This is the floor plan for these homes, which is 1 2-bed and 1 3-bed home. Next slide, please. These are the elevations for plots 5 to 7, rear of the frontage farmhouse building. I'm not showing you all the plans on your selection, don't worry. Next slide, please. And the floor plan for this building, which are 2-bed houses. Next slide, please. This is the dwelling in plot 32, which is in the far right corner of the site, which is a 5-bed house and its floor plan. And the next slide, please. And this is the dwelling in plot 23, which shows that some houses are rendered and others have sections of render on them to provide a mix in the external palette of materials. Next slide, please. This is a 4-bedroom home, and this layout is typical of the 18 4-bedroom houses proposed. Next slide, please. These next few slides show proposed visuals of the development. The black arrow on the map shows the direction of the view. This is the frontage view from Station Road into the development. Next slide, please. Oh no, there's been a mistake. We should have 3 more views. I'm sorry, whoever loaded this made a mistake. Sorry, let me skip down them. This is a key consideration of the application. A key consideration of the application is the impact it would have in the landscape. This map is taken from the Ashwell Neighbourhood Plan and shows the identified key views of the village. The application site is to the north of and slightly rear of the view SGV. However, this application has assessed its impact. Next slide, please. So this is the view from Station Road at a distance from 150 metres looking towards the site as existing. Next slide, please. So the top slide is the anticipated view at year 1, with the planting still relatively low level. The bottom image is the anticipated view at year 15 when the planting has matured. The impact in the landscape has been assessed by the Place Services Landscape team, who have concluded that there will be a minor adverse impact at year 1, with a negligible long-term impact after the planting has matured. And this team raised no objection to the application on the basis of harm in the landscape. Next slide, please. I have a view of the site to show you. This is the front of the site on Station Road with the wood visible in the background. Next slide, please. This is the view up Station Road, looking towards the village. Next slide, please. This is looking into the site towards the Sununa Park development with the wood extending off to the right. Next slide, please. This is the southern side of the site looking towards the wood. Next slide, please. This is the rest of the southern part of the site. Next slide, please. And this is the northern side of the site as viewed from the Centennial Park open space area. Next slide, please. This shows existing dwellings at Centennial Park to show how the proposed houses will blend in with this existing development. Next slide, please. One more slide of the development at Centennial Park again to show how the proposed dwellings will blend in with this development. As set out in the committee reports and in this presentation, there are objections to this application. These are that the site is within the rural area beyond the greenbelt, the heads of terms are not yet fully agreed, the housing mix is for too many larger homes, and the affordable housing does not fully meet local need. However, these are considered to be minor objections in the planning balance, and they do not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the significant benefit of providing 36 new homes, and the application is therefore recommended for approval on this basis, subject to the resolution as set out in the update. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Anne. Do members have any questions for the planning officer? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Anne, for your presentation. Is this effectively going to be an extension of Sununa Park? I mean, is it going to feel seamless, feel like one development the way they're proposing it, or is it going to feel very separate? I mean, what do you think from the way the design and layout is being proposed? Is it essentially going to be a continuation?
Yes, that's my understanding of it. Obviously, the open space area is in the middle, and there's the existing SUDS on the east end of Senua Park, and the SUDS is on the west side of the proposed layout, which is why I've got that green strip through the middle, which both residents from both sides of the development will be able to benefit from. But yes, it is essentially will become one, in effect, one development with the same external palette and design of the houses.
And it's obviously two applications, but is it the same applicant developer or is it quite different?
I understand it's the same.
Right. Okay. Yeah. What was the other thing? The housing mix clearly doesn't meet the neighbourhood plan.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably the neighbourhood plan is a material consideration in this, but you're viewing it as only a minor deviation from that. Is that?
No, yes and no. It isn't. The housing mix in the neighbourhood plan is a material consideration, as directed by paragraph 11D in the NPPF. Because we don't have a 5-year land supply, we have to conclude that our housing policies, both in our own local plan and in the Ashwell neighbourhood plan, are technically out of date. So we therefore have to give significant weight to the delivery of new homes as directed by the NPPF. So that makes that a significant planning benefit. Whereas the objection by it not being in accordance with the Ashwell neighbourhood plan is a moderate objection. So when you sort of think about it as a pair of kitchen scales tipping, the significant benefits of the new dwellings outweighs the moderate harm of the non-compliance with the housing mix.
Okay, so it's all based on the tilted balance, the fact we don't have a 5-year land supply. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Councillor Louise Peace. Louise.
Thank you. Can I just check what harm we're assigning to that road going through the wood? Because the pictures seem to magically show a wood with no road going through it, whereas there really is a road. So is it 24 trees removed?
4 live trees and 2 dead trees being removed to create the wood. That was an area that I did enter into discussions with the applicant on, and my view was that the access should come through from phase 1 Senua Park. That's just not a possibility, as set out in the committee report. So my view, as stated in the report, is that the sort of plant back of 143 trees across the site is suitable mitigation for the loss of the 24 live trees. In the planning balance, I came out on it not being a significant objection, but a moderate weight objection. And the idea is the canopies of the existing trees in time will sort of bush over, so you sort of have a canopy effect over the road, which is why it's been shown like that on the plans.
The magic road, yeah.
Thank you. Do I have further questions? So I do. When I was reading through it, I thought there were a number of items, if you like, that hadn't been signed off or hadn't. I thought whether you could tell me where we are with Section 106 agreement on it. I think you mentioned the heads of terms that weren't. I just can we clarify what's not what, and if that's normal for an application at this stage, would it be normal to approve an application at this stage with these things outstanding?
Yes, so the heads of terms are largely agreed. So the county council contributions are all agreed. The affordable housing, they've made us an offer. It doesn't quite match what we've asked for as set out in the report, but they are giving us 14 dwellings, which is 40%. So that's as shown. So that is agreed. If the application is resolved to be granted, then we would obviously accept that offer of affordable housing. The two outstanding matters are the payment for the sports pavilion from Ashwell Parish Council. The applicant has agreed to pay a contribution to the sports pavilion, but at this moment in time, the amount is not yet agreed. So they will pay something. We don't yet know quite what. The applicant was seeking further clarification from Ashwell Parish Council on how they'd arrived at the figure they're asking for, and that's still being considered at this time, which is why the resolution to yourselves tonight is that matter needs to be resolved and in agreement via Sean Greaves before the application could move forward for the legal agreement to be taken forward. And obviously, as I've explained tonight, the same issue is currently ongoing with the SSI payment. So the amount's not agreed on that either.
Just before I bring Sean in, just to sort of clarify my question, is it usual at this stage of an application for those matters still to be outstanding, or would they normally be resolved by this stage?
In most instances, the heads of terms will be fully agreed before you go to Planning Control Committee. But ultimately, in the event that the application is resolved to be granted by yourselves tonight, the two outstanding payments the applicant has agreed in principle to, but the amount isn't yet agreed. In the event that we get to a situation where we don't agree those amounts, then the application would obviously have to be returned back to yourselves, possibly with a different recommendation to consider.
Thank you. Sean.
Anne's just said what I was about to say. If we're not content with the negotiations, then I would consider it appropriate to report the matter back to Planning Control Committee.
Thank you. Any further questions to the officer? No. In which case, may I call our first our public objector, Parish Councillor Graham Lee. Councillor Lee, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, thank you. Ashwell Parish Council objects to the application for a number of reasons, some of which you've already received in the pack. This current proposal, adding 36 more houses, would increase Sanuna Park to a total of 64 houses, which is 39% larger than the 2017 application, which was rejected on appeal because the harm outweighed the benefits. Since approval of the recently built 28 houses, this application now conflicts with key policies of the subsequently adopted Ashwell Neighbourhood Plan and the local plan, both of which have been approved in the last 3 years, which should be given more weight, arguably, than the district's housing shortfall. There is no proven local need for the proposed number and mix of houses, particularly the high volume of large dwellings. 72% of the additional houses proposed are 3+ bedrooms and 50% are 4 or 5 bedrooms, directly contradicting Ashwell Neighbourhood Plan identified needs. Evidence of low demand for these large houses is already present. 25% of the 28 houses already built remain unsold a year after completion. The development would be more than twice the size of any other single development in the village, which is inappropriate for the local scale and location. The high density of the proposal conflicts with the planning principle of decreasing housing density at village edges. The location is arguably unsustainable, situated nearly a mile from the primary school and essential village facilities, making residents drive for most local trips and the station. The application violates local plan policy SP2, which restricts development outside settlement boundaries unless supported by a neighbourhood plan, which this does not. The site is located in a rural area where the local plan para 464 states development beyond the green belt should be restrained where access to services is poor, which this is. The planning officer's recommendation relies too heavily on the 5-year housing supply shortfall rather than the negative local impact. So Ashwell Parish Council argues that while individual harms might not be enough to outweigh the tilted balance in favour of development, their collective impact justifies a rejection of this application.
Thank you. Do members have any points of clarification from the speaker? No. Then I will call on our second public objector, Clive Hall. Clive, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, my name is Clive Hall and I am the current Chair of the Conservators of Fairfield Heath and Greens. I return again this evening in respect to this Ashwell development to speak about my concern for the way in which this committee is seeming to fail to follow the MPPF, your own local plan, your developer contributions SPD, and the Fairfield Heath mitigation strategy, all of which are material planning considerations. In this specific case, you departed from the agreed mitigation strategy by not consulting Natural England until just a couple of days ago. They usually have a 28-day period to reply. The problem you face is that the MPPF at 11D1 disengages the tilted balance where harm to a triple SI is not being fully mitigated. We have shared appeal cases with the officer that show this is the route taken on appeal. Tonight's officer's report seems to want you to believe that the tilted balance in favour of sustainable development is engaged, but that has not been shown to be the case. I hear that the developer is willing to mitigate, but as you know from the local plan SP7, until that willingness is in the heads of terms, you should refuse. I also note that the developer contributions SPD at 8.3.3 includes Natural England and or the Conservators in any agreement. So as it stands, to follow your own policy, you should refuse. I'm not going to ask you to do that because of the effort your officer has put in over the last 48 hours. But I am asking you to defer this decision until such time as you have the agreement with Natural England and or the Conservators as required by the SPD, a heads of terms as required by the local plan SP7, and the level of mitigation meets the requirements of MPPF 193. Most importantly, this will discharge your duty under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, which is to further the conservation of the features of the triple SI. Not ignore them, further them.
So you have 30 seconds.
If these things are completed, you can have confidence that 11D1 does not disengage the tilted balance, but to press on and make decisions to develop land and cause harm to the triple SI would be to ignore your duty under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. Do we have any points of clarification from the public speaker? No? Then I would like to call our member advocate objector, Councillor Tom Tyson. Tom, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just want to support really what we've heard from Councillor Lee from Ashwell Parish Council so far. I want to start just by looking back at the principle of development and also the arguments that Sanuna Park, which is the development as existing at the moment, which is the sort of bit which this will be an expansion of. So on the original application, which was recommended for refusal and voted by members of this committee, 4 of whom are here now, unanimously in favour of that refusal. The then development and conservation manager talked about the application suburbanising an area that's a transition between the countryside and the linear pattern of Ashwell, and said that it was not a logical extension to the village of Ashwell. And clearly, as we know, it's outside the settlement boundary. It's a huge site when you add up both parts together. But even with that original first application, one of the members who's here today, I won't embarrass them by saying which, talks about this site, the Sanuna Park site, as being bolted on the outside of the village with no attempt at integration, and said that we should make sure that developments that we have are a part of a community are not bolt-ons. And so this is really something that's being bolted on to something that was bolted on. And the expansion of Ashwell outside the settlement boundary is, in my view, unsustainable. And on the subject of sustainability, let's turn to transport for a minute. We've got a new bus service, which is hourly now along Station Road in Ashwell. However, it doesn't cover the times of day when commuters would most require to use it in the early morning and evenings. And so it's inevitable that people will be using their cars to get to the station and elsewhere. The station, as most of us are aware at Ashwell, is a complete nightmare as far as parking is concerned. There were cars always park on the verges of the roads there. There were 65 parked there this evening at 6 o'clock. And there is no footway or safe cycling route to the station from Ashwell. In fact, the route that takes you from there onwards would lead you to the probably the most notorious accident black spot on the A505 at Odsey. And our MP actually addressed the House of Commons on this just a couple of months ago, saying that it's one of the deadliest roads in the country, and the stretch between Baldock and Royston, I'm quoting him in particular, has seen tragedy after tragedy. It took me today 25 minutes to walk from Ashwell Primary School to the outer extent of the Sanuna Park site, which is where the boundary where the new development that's being proposed now would begin. So that would be a two-way walk of 50 minutes in good weather. Unsustainable, I think, for a parent trying to get their child to the school. The inspector who upheld the appeal in 2022 did talk about short drives being required and short walks, but this is not a short walk for most people. So I think, again, in terms of sustainability, we're looking at a site that is too far away from the facilities of the village to be properly sustainable, and car use will be inevitable from there. And the parking situation in Ashwell is diabolical.
1 minute, Tom.
One more note, thank you, Chair. One more note I'd like to mention about the design of the housing. It's not particularly in keeping with the local vernacular. Obviously, it continues the design principles of the Sanuna Park development that it becomes an extension of. But to be honest, I think that it's a real shame that we've ended up with a suburban look and these big red brick and tile houses, which are not anything like the vernacular of the outer village buildings in and around Ashwell and other villages in this northernmost part of Hertfordshire and up into Cambridgeshire, where the Owlsley white brick look is the common idiom, and it's been completely ignored in this site as it was in the previous application, and I think that's a crying shame. So both on note on our policy D1 requiring the site to respond positively to the local context. It fails SP2 that, as Graham's already said, that general development will be allowed in category A villages within the defined settlement boundaries and outside of them only if supported by the neighbourhood plan. So I think that the presumption, sorry, Chair, in favour of sustainable development fails. The adverse impacts outweigh the benefits of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any points of clarification from members of the committee from Councillor Tyson? No. Okay. Then we'll move on to I have the applicant's agent now to speak, Stuart Booth. And Stuart, you have 5 minutes. I'll let you know when you have a minute left.
Thank you, Chair. I'm representing the applicant Beck Homes. As mentioned, this application is on land adjacent to Sanuna Park, which is the housing development submitted by Beck and allowed on appeal in April 2022. 4 years later, this scheme is now complete, delivering new market and affordable housing in the village and making a relatively small but important contribution to the housing needs of the district. That application was originally refused by the Planning Committee due to perceived effects on the character and appearance of the area. This was appealed. The inspector considered the landscape-led design approach would moderate the visual impact whilst preserving the fundamental character of the village and landscape, and granted consent. The review considered the wood, hedgerow and tree buffers around the site contain views from the more open fields beyond the village, and the on-site green space pond and additional planting soften the interface of the development and village edge. The new scheme you're considering this evening seeks to do exactly the same. The application has been prepared by the same project team, is the same applicant, and designed in similar terms, which is landscape-led and with a mix of housing appropriate to the location. The scheme was devised following a detailed landscape visual appraisal that assessed the existing qualities of the landscape and sought to limit the impact from development. Now, this LVA was assessed by the Place Services landscape team, who was satisfied and supported the conclusions of the report. And importantly, they have no objection to the proposal in landscape terms. Likewise, all of the statutory consultees are satisfied with the technical details of the proposals and considering the principle of development, matters of access, layout, scale, appearance and landscape relating to the proposal. The committee report concludes to recommend the development for approval. You will see in the committee report that several questions were raised by the case officer during the application, and we wish to thank the officer for allowing us to respond and make changes that it improved the scheme but didn't undermine the landscape-led approach. An example of this was the introduction of bungalows to the site, which helped to reduce the visual impact on the frontage whilst maintaining the farmstead design approach that respected and reflects the local character of the area. The proposal also includes improvements to the biodiversity of the site, and whilst this is now standard, 10% increase. This proposal provides more than 50% increase in B&G, and as mentioned, the plan proposes significant areas of tree planting, open space, expanding and reshaping of the existing woodland, areas for sustainable drainage, a play area, and these densely planted landscape buffers around the whole periphery of the site. Scheme proposes a good mix of dwellings and meets the policy requirement for 40% of affordable homes, with discussions with a registered housing provider who provided developments on Sanuna Park influencing the mix of those affordable units going forward. The difference between policy and the proposal is just a single bedroom. Design of the properties reflects those considered acceptable at Sanuna Park by the inspector and are compatible with local planning policy, with some minor changes made through discussion with a case officer, for example, reorientating some of the units and reducing the hard standing. At Beck Homes, the applicant have demonstrated through the Sanuna Park development that an approval made in this location can be developed to completion within 5 years. So granting a consent today would immediately add these houses to your much needed housing land supply. The district has consistently not been able to demonstrate that level of housing, making the plan out of date and engaging the tilted balance to the presumption in favour of sustainable development. I think it's worth noting the housing supply in 2022, when that scheme was considered, on the same presumption was 3.5 years. It's now dropped to 2.6. And this represents a shortfall of more than 3,300 new homes without consent across the district.
1 minute.
The government supports a further increase in housing delivery and also seeks support for small and medium enterprise house builders, of which development to this site would likely be delivered by. And having a good supply of these medium-sized sites is vital to achieving and maintaining housing supply. Delivery of housing must be given significant weight in the planning balance. We submit an application, we'll be confident provided an excellent approach to the site in its context and was compliant with national and local policies to allow the committee to approve the proposal. The changes agreed with officers have improved the proposal and the impact's been limited and the benefits enhanced, which has led to the recommendation for approval. And I respectfully request officers accept the recommendation. Client anticipates the decision today would allow development to commence in early 2027, completion 2023. And if a decision is made contrary to the recommendation today, then we will no doubt be appealing that. I'm at 2 seconds, but I've got a clarification as well, if that's possible, on one of the questions raised earlier.
The
Thurfield Heath question.
We will have questions, so
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
prompt them to. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So on that point, do we have any questions to the applicant? Councillor Claire Billing. Claire.
Yeah, I'd like to know if you could give me some information about what sort of consultation you've done with local people and the parish council.
Smack on, yeah. For this application, we didn't actually undergo public consultation. That was largely due to obviously the council's lack of housing and land supply, need for significant uplift in delivery, and also previously we'd been working on the first stage of the site and in Ashwell for I think approaching 9 years, and so we had obviously previously done quite significant consultation before we submitted that first application. There were 2 applications for that scheme, and if we're effectively repeating similar proposal. So we understood the kind of issues that had raised previously.
Thank you. To answer your question, Claire? Okay. Councillor Martin Prescott. Martin.
Thank you. Just to very briefly read out a couple of points of objection, which I don't think were covered in the particularly well in the officer's report, relating to water and drainage. So if I could just very, very quickly read those out. There's an issue with water pressure. The whole village is poor. The sewage system blocks and floods. Sonuma Park is already experiencing problems with their sewage system. Can I ask, is there any merit to those comments?
I'm not aware of that they are accurate, no, sir. I'm not, and we're also the applicant didn't actually build phase 1, so I'm not aware of that situation. I don't know if the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Val-Bryant. Oh.
Thank you. You mentioned the shortfall in our housing supply. Could I ask about the present site, the 2022 site? Because obviously we need houses that are being lived in, and a previous speaker mentioned that 25% of the houses are unsold. Can I ask please if that's true and what size houses they are?
Just from a visit recently to the sales office, I understand there is a few houses that are still available for sale, although obviously the scheme has been completed, all the units are built. I believe some of the kind of last elements around that have been completed in recent months, but I think there's only kind of maybe 5 properties that are still available. But I obviously in terms of when the scheme was built, I understand sales were quite well, went quite well.
The size of these houses, please?
I'm not aware of that. Like I say, it's not as, although it's a scheme we originally got consent for, there was a different house builder built that out.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Ruth Brown. Ruth, you had a question.
Since you were unable to mention your proposal for mitigation for Thurfield Heath, can I ask what you're proposing to do in respect of the contributions that are requested?
Yeah, as I think it was mentioned, that was initially raised to us a few days ago. We kind of immediately accepted the principle of it, but did want to have effectively just look over it and, for these contributions, effectively ensure that they are consistent with policy and, milk the can and meet the regulations, rather than just being a number that's approached come up. But yeah, I can actually confirm that I've had confirmation from the applicant they are willing to accept that number now, in terms of that figure that has been requested. So that can be kind of added to that heads of terms in terms of that item that is on there. We are happy to accept that.
Thank you. Oh, should I work if your lights on or off? Sorry. Councillor Bryant, you're.
Talking about heads of terms, the payment for the sports pavilion, that is still to be decided. Are you any closer to that at the moment?
We received, again, a couple of days ago, we received an update to the request. And again, it's effectively just us wanting to understand how the figure was calculated. There isn't, I understand that the council's SPD on this was quite an old one, but it was updated a few years ago now, but there's no specific reference in that to how this contribution needs to be calculated. And so we just need that clarification. And I did speak with we exchanged with the case officer recently about arranging a meeting very shortly to clarify that point.
Do you have a figure in mind?
We did provide, in response to the initial figure, we did provide a response that was effectively prorated to the agreed amount for the, I can't remember exactly where the scheme was, but there was a scheme recently in Ashwell Street for 14 units. And we kind of put a proposal that effectively using the same principle that applied to that scheme and work it out pro rata. I believe it was 135, something like that.
135,000.
Yeah.
Okay. No further questions for the.
It's been effectively we put that back to the case officer, and we've had a response from the parish to further clarify their comment, but not necessarily in response to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions to the applicant? No. In which case, may I? Sorry. Yes. At this point, Councillor Tyson, you spoilt my thunder there, James. I've got to throw him out the room. Yeah. Has to be some perks of this job. I've failed to find any others. So at this point, I've lost my place now. Almost formality. I will turn to the officer. Do you have any further points you wish to make?
No, thank you, Chair.
Yes. So, do we have any questions for the planning officer?
I do. A number of instances, both in your report and in the comments, and in fact, even the comments of the applicant's agent, it strikes me that there's a lot of stuff that's not yet agreed, not concluded, agreements not signed. The applicant's agent mentioned a couple of times that issues had just come to light over the last few days. I am a little concerned that we're acting a little bit in haste on considering this application, and I think one of the earlier speakers suggested that we may want to defer until we're in a position to have all of those various agreements concluded, also to give the applicant the benefit of a little bit extra time to conclude whatever the negotiations are. How do you feel about that?
Well, the issue that came out this week was this SSI issue that obviously I explained in my presentation, and Mr. Booth has just confirmed that the applicant is willing to make that payment. So that's now closed down, that issue. So I don't agree that the application needs to be deferred for that reason, because we now know what the answer is on that matter. The only really two outstanding issues from my point of view are, number one, the outstanding objection from the LLFA, which is a technical objection only. And as I'm sure you're probably aware, there's very long delays coming out of the LLFA team from the County Council. It's not an objection in principle, it's an objection seeking some additional technical information, which the applicant has provided. It's been with the LFA now for a number of months, and I am chasing on it, but they have got quite bad staff shortages at the LFA. And as I explained earlier, in the event that they maintain an objection that can't be overcome, then obviously the application would have to come back before you tonight to have a different recommendation. We have done this before on other sites. The other sites have come before committee with exactly the same resolution to grant, subject to the objection from the LFA being sorted out and any conditions being recommended, agreed via the Development and Conservation Manager. So that's not unusual for you to consider applications in that situation. The sports pavilion payments, I'll be honest with you, when I drafted the application for committee, I had hoped that that matter would be resolved. It would be coming for you tonight with the figure agreed. Obviously that's not happened, but from my point of view, there's not an in principle objection to this because the parish council is seeking a contribution. The applicant has agreed that he will pay a contribution, and obviously we need to then resolve what that figure will be. In the event that it doesn't happen, we can bring the application back. In the event that it does happen, we can still consider that via the delegation to Sean Greaves when that figure is known.
May I? Still on the point of a potential deferral, the parish councillor, whose name I apologise escapes me, did make a number of points that suggested we should give this further consideration before reaching a decision. How do you feel about that?
From my point of view, the objections that were raised are all matters that are discussed in my report, and they're all matters that I've concluded are minor objections in the planning balance.
Okay. Thank you, Martin. Councillor Ruth.
I'd like to ask about the sustainable transport contribution. So in the report, it says that HCC, well, it's been agreed, nearly 355,000. Do you know where they're proposing to spend that, how they're proposing to spend it?
Is to move the speed sign on the Station Road to the other side of so when you go up Station Road now, you go past the Whitford station and then there's the 30-mile-an-hour signage. That's to move down the road so that this vehicle entrance is behind it. So that's part of it. And it's to partly upgrade the footpath alongside the from the front entrance up to the village edge. That's the two details that I've had put forward to me.
Okay. So that wouldn't be sufficient money to put in a footpath to the station, because we're hearing that there's no footpath at all and it's not safe to walk to the station.
Well, there's a considerable footpath along the front of the site already, going past the site down towards the Park Homes area already. So no, they've not indicated that any money would be pulled to put a footpath from the edge of bottom part of the station down to the station. That's not been mentioned as part of this application.
No, the reason I ask is it was because it was an amendment was made to the LC whip through the consultation when our LC whip was adopted, was around it was a strongly something that the Ashwell people really wanted was a sustainable way of getting to the station, walking or cycling safely, and that is part of our LC whip, and therefore I thought maybe that sustainable transport contribution could be put towards that. That was the reason I asked. Thank you.
Councillor Louise Pierce. Louise.
May I ask two things, please? Is that okay? The first thing is I'm confused about the objection from the LLFA, because there's a letter on the 31st that says they remove their previous objection subject to conditions. So it looks like that response is received.
31st of which month?
March 2026. There are conditions, but it says remove previous objection. There's two conditions, three conditions.
I'm embarrassed to admit that I wasn't aware that had been put on the case file. So
Okay.
I'm apologies for that.
Okay. Can I ask the second question then?
Yeah.
A couple of people have mentioned houses on the existing part of the development not selling. So I've just had a quick tour of Rightmove, and they're right, there are 13 still for sale. Does that form any sort of material planning consideration? I see Sean going for the button.
Yeah.
Sean, would you like to answer that?
No, it doesn't. There's still a significant unmet housing need in the district. As you're probably aware, there are current market circumstances caused by matters beyond this country's control, should I say, that are affecting people's willingness to make important decisions such as purchase a new house. And so that I'm hopeful, I'm sure we're all hopeful, that this will be a rather temporary glitch in the housing market. As you know, housing markets do go up and down, but the need pretty much is has been pretty much constant. And so the answer is no.
I'm not sure if our planning lawyer is going to reassure us about the international situation, or I suspect not, and may want to add to what Sean just said. Naznam.
I agree with Sean, but just to add that we have to determine the application that is before us. We can't take other developments or applications that have gone before us. We just have to focus on the plan merits of the application that's in front of us.
Councillor Prescott. Martin.
If I may follow on from that, I appreciate what you're saying, but one of the arguments in favour of the development that was put by the applicant's agent was that there is a demand for the properties. We know that the housing mix doesn't suit the local plan, and yet we're hearing that there's this huge demand for these properties, and yet Councillor Peace or Councillor whoever, with the power of the internet, was able to search and find out that there are 13, not 4, as was suggested earlier. So my argument, or my question would be, how does that argument that there is a demand for these properties stack up against the facts?
Who wants that? Sean. Yeah.
I'll do that one. There may well be the demand, but because of particular circumstances, people aren't willing to make important decisions at this particular time. That's what I suspect. But as Nazneen said earlier, that's not really a material consideration for the determination of this application, which is on its merits. That other part of the development is a separate development, and there may well be particular reasons in relation to that development why certain properties on that development are not as attractive as other properties, for example. But this scheme would make a contribution towards the identified housing need of the district and a contribution to the current significant shortfall in meeting that need. We only have a 2.6 year supply of housing, and the requirement is that we have a 5-year supply of housing. Hence, the total balance applies to this scheme. I would ask members not to confuse housing need with the current housing market circumstances. There may well still be a need, but for various reasons, people are not willing to make decisions at this particular point in time.
Thank you, Sean. Nazneen.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add that in a situation, for example, if for that reason alone members were minded to refuse and there was an appeal against the application, the council would have to have reasons for refusal that would be defendable at appeal, and they would need to be material planning considerations in respect of this application.
Martin.
Just for clarity, I'm not necessarily moving in favour of refusing or granting, but I'm thinking I would prefer to defer until a number of these matters are bottomed out.
Okay. Any further questions to the planning officers before we move forward and before we move into debate? Okay. So the officer's recommendation is to grant permission Unless members are minded to propose a different recommendation on this item, along with material planning reasons, I shall be proposing that we grant permission. Sorry.
Resolutions to grant subject to the items in the update.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. At this point, then, because I was going to have to ask it at some point, so I shall do it now. When I read out the full grounds for granting or whatever, item A is the receipt of a no objection response from the LLFA and the imposition of any conditions delegated to the development. And would we take this one out now? Because it has that been granted, will we leave it in?
You just need to say the imposition of the recommended conditions. Thank you.
Sorry, the imposition. Martin.
Just before you propose a motion, I accept what you're saying about if we want to propose a refusal, which I stress I'm not about to do, that we need sound planning grounds. If we're looking for just a deferral, do we need sound planning grounds for that? Because we're not actually refusing.
Nasmi. Oh, Sean.
Yes, you do need grounds for deferral because if a decision isn't made within the statutory period, the applicant has a right to appeal against failure to determine the application, and therefore it would be quite appropriate for members to give reasons for deferral that would delay a decision because the applicant would have a right to appeal against failure to determine the application within the target period.
Councillor Peace, Louise.
Okay, I am going to suggest that we refuse this. And as the planning reasons to refuse it, I will cite the officer's report at 4.3.4 that says this is for 36 new homes on land within the rural area beyond the Greenbelt. It does not meet any of the exceptions of policy CGB1, and it conflicts with the provisions of local plan policies SP2, SP5, CGB1, and Ashwell Neighbourhood Plan, ASH1.
So just to confirm your session, that was refusal. Refusal. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second that and reserve my right to speak.
Okay. I think Councillor Peace is reserved the right to speak. I think that's fine, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's fine. So we have a proposal to refuse and a seconder. So we move into debate on that proposal. Sean.
Could I seek a repeat or clarification of the proposed reasons for refusal, Councillor Peace? Thank you.
Yeah. So it's the reasons as set out in the officer's report at 4.3.4 that set out exactly why the proposal does not meet certain policies. And I think it's easier for you to read that than for me to read that out again. And I appreciate that the tilted balance is engaged, but planning is not a science. It is a balance of whether we feel the harms outweigh the benefits. And the officer has reached one conclusion and I've reached another.
Okay, then we move into debate on that proposal. Councillor Ruth Brown.
Thank you, Chair. So the original proposal back in 2017 that was refused and upheld at appeal was for 46 units. 28 have now been built, which was granted on appeal. This is now for 36. If my maths works correctly, that's a total of 64. Originally, 46 was refused, and the appeal was dismissed, and we're now proposing to grant a total of 64. Admittedly, I know 28 already being built or have been built. This is a very significant urbanisation of a village outside of its settlement boundary, in contrary to its neighbourhood plan. What is the point in a parish council spending hours of their time? They are volunteers producing a neighbourhood plan, which then goes to referendum, that is then approved, and now we ignore it because it very clearly conflicts with those policies in that neighbourhood plan. And we've talked about the housing mix. It has arisen in Ashwell before, where several times actually, where we've refused 4 5-bedroom houses and said that they need 3-bedroom houses, and then the developer has advertised them as 4 and 5-bedroom houses. We've had a Section 73, and then we've allowed it to go through. We've seen that these houses are not selling. I know that's not a material consideration, but Ashwell clearly needs smaller units, and the neighbourhood plan has done a lot of research on this and has come up with a housing mix, and we are now proposing to ignore that. So on the grounds of the housing mix, the fact that it's outside of the settlement boundary, and the fact that these the scale and the layout and the type of housing is urbanising the village, it should be, as has already been stated, on the edge of a village. It should be a lower density. It should be merging into the countryside, not looking like a suburban development. And then on top of that, we have the sustainable transport issue, that there is no sustainable way of getting to the station from this development, and it's really it's not safe to walk. It is cyclable, but it's not really very safe. And the parking is not adequate either. Also, it's a 25-minute walk from the school, and frankly, most people are not going to walk. So it's not sustainable in transport terms. It's urbanising, it's outside the settlement boundary, and it's in contradiction to the neighbourhood plan in terms of housing mix. Therefore, I think I will be voting to refuse it.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Ian Mantle, in.
I agree with pretty much everything that's been said, except unfortunately we have a problem called a planning inspectorate. The planning inspectorate already granted the other half of this site. I know it was refused when it was the whole site at first, but they've granted this for whatever reason best known to the planning inspectorate, and I think that unfortunately that rather lands us with a problem, that we would have great difficulty in defending this, given the fact that the other half of the site, or the existing part, had already been allowed on appeal. I quite agree it's totally unsatisfactory development. So I'm not sure, do we really have the courage to try and fight the inspectorate again?
Councillor Val, sorry, Martin Prescott, and then Val. Sorry, Martin.
Thank you. I was actually going to refer to 4.4.1 in the officer's report, but if I could just briefly, just an observation on Councillor Mantle's comments just then. I mean, if the original appeal for the 60-odd houses was refused, and then a very much smaller development was granted on appeal, it strikes me that what the planning inspector was saying, what's implied in that judgment, was that a smaller development was acceptable, but the larger development wasn't, and possibly still isn't. So I do think we should have the courage to stand by what has been said throughout this evening. But if I could just go to 4.4.1 of the officer's report, the whole of 4.4.1 I follow, except for the last line, which is really goes back to Councillor Peace's point that it's a matter of balance and it's a matter of opinion. And I frankly disagree with the officer. Respectfully, I disagree with the officer's opinion on the giving moderate weight to the objection to those points. I think we should give more than moderate weight to them, and that's why I will be also voting for the motion to refuse.
Thank you, Martin. Councillor Val Bryant. Val.
Thank you. I'm going back to Councillor Brown's comments, because that's when I press my button, that I fully support what you say. I just thinking in terms of the maths of it, is it enough? That have we got enough mitigating circumstances which actually are against compared to the tilted balance? I think we need to look at that, because although the actual items themselves we tend to agree on, or some of us agree on, in fact, are they going to add up to enough that in fact we can take those forward?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to go through, if you could bear it, Anne, to go through those again with the amounts that you suggest.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. So, as directed by paragraph 11D in the NPPF, we have to give significant weight to the delivery of new homes, and we have to, let me just go to the terminology. It says, it directs us that any adverse impacts have to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. So in my report, I've gone through the matters where it doesn't comply. Obviously, one issue is the affordable housing, but in real terms, it's short by 1 bedroom. So the application is still proposing 14 dwellings to affordable housing. It's still giving us 40% affordable housing. And whilst it's technically not in compliance with what the housing officer asked for, the reality is she asked for 1 4-bedroom house and they're offering us a 3-bedroom house. So in my view, the non-provision of 1 bedroom is a minor objection to the application when you consider the overall benefit of 36 new homes and 14 of those being for affordable housing. Another area where it doesn't comply is on the housing mix. They are providing a housing mix. There is a mix of 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 bedrooms across the 36 dwellings. There are more 4-bedroom houses than ideally, the Ashwell plan is seeking on 3-bedroom houses. But if you break it down to the number of bedrooms, it's possibly something like 5 additional bedrooms are being asked for. If you think, maybe a few more 3-bedroom houses came along rather than the 4-bedroom houses. And again, is the addition of 5 bedrooms across the development really such a significantly harmful impact that outweighs the overall benefit of 36 new dwellings? In my view, no, that's a moderate impact. The heads of terms, obviously we've discussed that already tonight, and my view is that's not a sticking point. I think that's something we can resolve. I wasn't sure what your comment was on parking, Councillor Brown. I wasn't sure if you meant parking on site or parking at the station.
I was talking about the parking on the verges at the station.
Okay.
We heard from the member advocate that 65 were counted tonight, and that's always parked up.
Yeah.
And that's why I specifically wanted to know if the sustainable transport contribution was going to do something about that issue. Clearly it isn't.
No. So in terms of the layout and the scale and design, I appreciate that there's comments that the design may not be fully complementary to Ashwell as a whole. But in terms of blending in with the existing Senior Park development next door, so it appears as comprehensive development, there is no objection in my point of view to the palette of materials and the external scale and design. The design layout is quite heavily landscape led. There's obviously large section of green space through the middle of the site. There's enhanced buffers of landscaping around the edge of the site. And there is a significant uplift in number of trees across the development. So my view is there's no objections that could be sustained on layout and design. Does that answer your question? Sorry. Thank you.
Sure.
I fully understand members' concerns with regards to the identified conflict in the report to certain policies of the local plan and the neighbourhood plan. And those have been spelled out in the report and were cited by Councillor Peace. However, as indicated in the MPPF, where we do not have a 5-year supply of housing, those policies should be given, that conflict with those policies should be given limited weight, because those policies are considered to be out, what's the phraseology?
Out of date.
Out of date, sorry. Those policies are considered to be out of date, notwithstanding the local plan was adopted in 2022. That's how the matter would be looked at by an inspector on appeal. If we cite conflict with our local plan policy on the location of development, beyond settlement boundaries, policy SP2, the MPPF is clear. That policy is relevant and is relevant to the development, but is considered out of date. And therefore, a reason for refusal based upon that conflict would not, in my view, be sustainable on appeal. But we do accept that there is conflict with those policies, and I fully understand why members are concerned about conflict with not only local plan policies, but actual neighbour plan policies. But equally, the relevant policies in the neighbour plan are also out of date when it comes to assessment of this application. And so we have fully considered all of these matters in coming to the recommendation to grant planning permission. Members are entitled to come to a different view to what we as officers recommend, but it's important that you take into account our advice. We're employed to give that advice, and it's important that you give full and proper consideration to the advice that you're given. But as I say, you're not bound by the advice that we give. You just have to give very good reasons for not accepting the advice given, and strong and reasons for refusal that would be sustainable and defendable on appeal. Thank you.
Councillor Prescott.
Thank you. I don't really want to prolong this any further because I think those of us on the committee have all probably made our minds up now. But I do listen to Councillor Brown's points. It is very hard to defend this sort of stuff when you're facing ward residents through parish councils or directly on the streets. When they say they spend all this time and they go to tremendous amount of effort to develop these plans, and then applications come to the committee which are clearly compromise the plans, and we're instructed to just ignore the local plan. I appreciate entirely what you're saying. I understand that the rules are complex and are constantly changing. And yes, we don't have sufficient housing land supply. But it is a toughie when you have to face, and I suspect this is going to come up on the next application as well, that people spend an enormous amount of time, the people that live in the communities, to develop plans that will actually help the developments of their communities. And people are mindful of the fact that, you know, housing is required and young people need a start, and affordable housing and all those other matters. Nobody's ignoring that. But it is tough when you have to go back to people and say, well, I know you spent all that time doing it and the officer recognized it, but we were still advised to go against it. It's a hard one.
Councillor Winstanley, David.
Sorry, can I just go back to Sean's comments and Anne's before that about the chap from Thurfield Heath mentioned about the tilted balance disengaging in relation to the triple SI. I'm not sure if that was just squared off for the record, if you wouldn't mind.
If there was no agreement on mitigating the impact on the Thurfield Heath, then yes, it would be disengaged. But that's not the situation. The situation is that the payment is agreed, so therefore that's no longer an issue. Can I ask a point of clarification? Sorry, before we move to the vote on the reason for refusal. I'm not sure if that's appropriate. Obviously, Councillor Peace has said that she wants the reason for refusal to be paragraph 4.3.4. I would just like to say that I think a second reason for refusal, if you are minded to go that way, is needed for covering the section 106 sets of terms. If that can be considered, please. Thank you.
Dave, is your question answered? Yeah. So, okay, I had a question. Sean, come in first, please.
If you also are minded to refuse, Councillor Brown did identify other issues, not just relating to its location outside the settlement boundary, which I've indicated it alone would not be sufficient to sustain a reason for refusal. But Councillor Brown indicated that it would have an urbanising effect upon this village edge, and should be at a lower density, and also raise the issue regarding to the sustainability of the location. But my view is those are officer recommendation still stands, of course, but Councillor Brown did introduce other issues that are related to its location and its effect upon the character appearance of the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth, go on, jump in before we go on.
Yes, that's correct. And I think if it was one of those things only, I would be thinking the balance wouldn't be in favour, enable us to refuse it. But like Councillor Peace, I think it's about this balance, and there are a lot of things, a lot of harms, and like Councillor Peace, I've come to a different view from the case officer that these outweigh the benefits of providing additional homes, because it's not a sustainable for all the reasons I've said. It's not a sustainable location. It's an urbanising effect. And it doesn't meet the housing mix of the neighbourhood plan, as well as being outside the settlement boundary. So all those reasons, I think, together tip the balance for me. Thank you.
Go on, you go first. I'll get there eventually. Go on, you go.
I just wanted to get in, Chair, before you potentially go to the vote.
Shall I speak first? Because I have some questions. So it's an interesting discussion. Clearly, I think I've already indicated I was slightly concerned there seemed to be a lot of outstanding matters. Whether in that itself that's a reason for refusal, I'm not certain. And certainly some of those outstanding matters appear to have been answered during the course of the meeting. I'm mindful of that. I think I listened to what Councillor Brown said, and I was trying to remember whether harm to sort of raw character is a material consideration or not. So perhaps when I shut up, somebody can answer that question, whether harm to rural character of the village would count as a material consideration. I'm falling on the side of I'm not convinced we have enough to reject the application. But obviously it's for the committee to decide. I will say several people earlier mentioned courage, and sadly courage is not what's required in this room. We have to vote with our heads and not our hearts, and that can be incredibly difficult sometimes. And when I hear people comment on, you can just disregard the tilted balance or whatever, well, we can't. So I'm not convinced that there are grounds for refusal, but obviously the committee will form its own decision. But I would like to ask the question about whether harm to rural character of the village is a material consideration or not.
I think it commonly wraps into the point that Councillor Brown made about urbanising edge. It's a consideration. In my view, it's not a material consideration. Thank you.
That was my fear. Nazanin, did you want to come back?
Lost my train of thought, Chair. It was just before going to the vote. I just had a brief conflict with Sean that we'd need to be clear on what the reasons for refusal would be, and to vote on that, and whether the final wording would be delegated to officers or whether that would be discussed this evening before going to a vote.
Okay. I thought we generally made it clear at this stage what the grounds would be, unless the committee feel differently.
Down 4 reasons for refusal. The first one would be paragraph 4.3.4 from the report. The second one would be adverse impacts, urbanising effects on the village edge. The third one is unsustainable location, and the fourth one is a lack of heads of terms. My view is that I think final wording should probably be delegated to Sean, because obviously that's not final wording in my view.
Martin.
And did you make a point about the section 106? I didn't catch what you were saying.
That one as well.
Yes, if there's not a reason for refusal regarding the Section 106 heads of terms, then the applicant wouldn't be required to pay anything.
Okay, sorry.
So I think the suggestion is that when we vote on this, if we were to vote, if the committee were to vote to refuse, it'd be on the four grounds that Anne has just outlined, but the final wording would be delegated to the planning conservation manager, Sean. Are we clear on that? So are we able to move to a vote at this stage on that basis? Yeah. Caroline, sorry.
Can you just say which way yes means and which way no means, please?
So when we come to vote, we have a proposal to reject the application, which was moved by Councillor Prescott and seconded by Councillor. Oh, sorry, my apologies. Sorry, ladies. It's normally Martin. It was moved by Councillor Peace and seconded by Councillor Brown. So you would be voting yes to agree to refuse. I got that right for once? Okay. So unless an officer shouts at me, I'm going to say we're going to move to the vote. So to be clear, we're voting on whether we wish to reject the application. Yeah.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Okay. The application is rejected for the grounds that we have discussed. Yes. Yeah. I was just pausing for breath. We're not, yeah. Given we're not close to 10:30, we don't have to worry about running out of time. I'm going to propose we take a 5-minute break while we round up the two councillors who are missing. We live? Cool. Right, have our two lost councillors returned? Thank you. Item 8 is application 2503149 RM, land between Royston Road and Cambridge Road, Barkway. Ben Glover to present. Ben.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening.
I don't know my wards in Royston very well, but we've got lots of Royston councillors here. Are they presented tonight, and are they allowed to stay?
Councillor Brown.
This isn't in Royston. This is in Barkway, and Councillor Prescott is the district councillor for that area.
What do you need to know? I can take you on a tour if you wish. Not a problem. It's a lovely part of the world. Some fantastic pubs near there.
Have you got any vested interest in Barkway?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Apart from the fact that I like the village. What can I tell you?
Thank you.
I like lots of villages, Councillor Prescott. Ben.
Thank you. So I have provided members with a written update prior to this meeting. Just to summarise, that update includes a summary of the consultee comments received following the 19th of April reconsultation relating to the corrected plan submitted by the applicant to include Bridleway 018 onto the site. A new condition has been added, a new solar panel condition, an updated ecological enhancements condition, which has been changed to be prior to above slab level rather than prior to commencement. The Council's ecologist has raised no concerns to this change. So given that change, there are no pre-commencement conditions to agree with the applicant, so that's a slight change to report there. But other than that, I have no further updates for members. So if we can go on to the slides, please. Oh, sorry, I'll just do a summary of the application as well. We can go on to the slides. So the application seeks approval of reserved matters, including appearance, landscaping, layout, and scale. The development relates to the erection of up to 140 residential dwellings with associated landscaping, highways, drainage, public open space, and ancillary infrastructure. The application follows approval of outline planning permission reference number 2502234 S73. So tonight we are considering the details of scale, layout, appearance, and landscaping, given that the principal development was accepted at the outline stage along with a legal agreement. Details relating to the access were also approved at the outline stage. So moving on to the photos. So the first photo here is me standing in Royston Road looking north of the site to the right-hand side and existing residential properties to the left. Next photo, please. So now I'm further up Royston Road, further north, looking south with a site to the left behind that hedgerow. Next photo. So I'm a bit further south again down Royston Road, looking at the southern boundary of the application site, which you can see marked out by the fencing. Next photo. Just a bit of a same location, bit of a wider angle, just a bit more context with. So where that tree line is there, that's Cambridge Road, the other side of the site. Next photo, please. So back onto Royston Road, just giving a bit of context of the existing development nearby and kind of road structure, etc. Next photo. So now we're moving on to Cambridge Road. This photo is looking south with the site straight ahead and to the right. This is approximately where the access onto Cambridge Road would be situated. Next photo, please. Again on Cambridge Road, now looking, so the site is directly ahead. Looking into the site. Next photo, please. So now we're moving on to Bridleway 017. This is what's known as a reserve site for the school is in front of me there with a site further to the rear. You can't see it too clearly, but there is a fence line along there marking out the site. Next photo, please. So moving closer now to the site boundary, still on the Bridleway, with the western parcel in view there. Next photo. Again, looking towards Royston Road with the site to the right-hand side. Next photo. Looking south towards the existing development at the northern end of Barkway. Next photo, please. So now we're still on the bridleway, now looking into the eastern part of the site. Next photo, please. A bit further up along the bridleway, looking into the eastern parcel. Next photo, please. Similar again, but now looking southeast into the eastern parcel. Next photo, please. Now just looking directly north up the existing bridleway. Next photo, please. Now looking west into the application site. Next photo, thank you. So now we're on to bridleway 018, just to the north, the gate onto 017, 017 bridleway is to the left there, with New Sales Park to the right hand side and the site to the left. Next photo. Same location, but now looking east for the site to the right. Next photo. Now we're looking west with the site to the left. This is still on the bridleway. Next photo, please. Okay, so on to the plans. This is the site location plan, red line containing what has been considered tonight. The site is situated to the north of the Barkway. The site is named to the northwest by number 6 Mill Cottages, Royston Road. To the Royston side of the site, there are several residential properties along Royston Road that front onto the site, but are on the other side of the road. The Barkway Village Hall neighbours the site to the southeastern boundary. The site is bound to the north by Bridleway 018 with New Sales Park, course to the north of the site. To the east are playing fields, and to the south is an open field currently with residential development further away to the south. So next plan, please. This is the proposed planning layout. So this provides detail as to the layout of the site. So the site would provide 2 vehicular points of access, one off Royston Road and the other off Cambridge Road. Additional separate pedestrian access points are provided along both Royston and Cambridge Road and via the bridleways that run through the site. So the layout is largely defined by the village street or primary road that runs east to west through the middle of the site, and then again by the central north-south bridleway. The site is then divided into 3 character area types known as village streets, residential lanes, and wooded lanes. Amenity space is provided centrally within the site with the play space located to the southern boundary. And then there's play on the way equipment as you follow the footpath by the way up north. So next slide, please. So this is a visualization of the site from Royston Road, where the access onto Royston Road. It just gives a sense of the scale and appearance of this part of the site. Next slide, please. So this is another visualization of the from the perspective of Cambridge Road. Next slide, please. So now this is a visualization of the site from within, looking at the village street section within the western parcel of the site. Next slide, please. And this is the village square visualization, which again gives just a sense of the layout, appearance, scale, and landscaping, what we can expect. And the next slide, please. This is the whole site visualization, looking south across the site with Barkway sort of in the distance there, or the northern part anyway. Again, just giving a sense of appearance, materials, landscaping. So next slide, please. So now we're looking at street scenes through various parts of the site. All properties within a site would be no more than 2 stories in height. So the top row of properties there, they are an example of what would front Royston Road. The second row of properties show those that front the village street to the south of the site and up to the village square. The third row depicts the properties that front the northern boundary within the western parcel of the site. And the fourth row depicts the properties that sit on the eastern side of sort of secondary road that runs north-south through part of the eastern parcel. So next slide, please. So this plan shows the parking layout of the site, including visitor parking, shown in blue. The number of visitor parking places and on-site, on-plot parking spaces are policy compliant and with the SPD. Next slide, please. So this is a surface material plan setting out what materials will be used to surface the roads, footpaths, and other routes throughout the site. So the primary road would be a blacktop material, moving down to key block on residential routes that come off the primary road. There will be timber edge hogging footpaths to the footpaths. Yeah, if you can move on to the next slide then, please. So this is the boundary treatments plan. So materials along the village street will include predominantly brick walls and metal estate railings, and then gardens would feature closed board fencing. Next slide, please. So this is the materials plans, which sets out the surface materials for the buildings and sites. So materials will include red brick, white rough cast render, weatherboarding, and a mix of roof tile appearances. That's kind of marked by the various colours shown on the plan there. Unfortunately, I think the keys perhaps a bit small, hard to see, but materials are set out. Next plan, please. So this plan shows the distribution of affordable rented and shared ownership properties throughout the site, blue being affordable and the orange being shared ownership. It also shows properties that would be constructed to M42 and M43 accessibility standards. Next plan, please. So just move on to the planting plans. This planting plan is for the northwest of the site. It shows a boundary planting proposed to the north of the site along the boundary of Bridleway 018. As you can see here, there'll be quite substantial tree and shrub planting along this boundary. Next slide, please. So another planting plan that shows the north centre of the site to the top of the Bridleway 017 and the type of planting we can expect, which includes wildflower planting, tree planting, and other mixes. Next slide, please. So now going to the northeastern part of the site, the planting plan shows, again, the site boundaries with New Sales Park to the north and Cambridge Road, and there's a mix of wildflower planting, tree planting, grassed areas. And then next slide, please. So it's the last one. This is the planting plan for the southwest of the site. Planting along the southern boundary includes ornamental hedges. So in addition to fencing that will form the southern boundary, there'll be a hedge. There are also hedges being planted throughout the site, along with trees and grass verges, as we can see from the plan there. So to conclude, it's recommended that the reserve matters be approved, subject to the 2 conditions set out within the officer report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ben. Do members have any questions for the planning officer? Martin Prescott.
Hi, thank you very much for that report. How would you characterise the density of the development as a whole? as compared with the rest of the surrounding village? There was one slide, I don't want to take you back to it because it would take us 10 minutes to find it, but there was one slide where there was I think it was looking southward, it was a sort of visual representation of the entire development, and it struck me it was an awful lot of houses on there.
Yep. So the site does have outline permission for 140 homes. I think it's my presentation. There are 3 character areas: the village street, residential lanes, and wooded areas. They have varying densities, with the wooded lanes being the lowest of those densities. Those wooded areas are sort of to the northeast of the site, so sort of along the northern boundaries. I suppose density increasing as you travel south through the site. In a sense, if it's useful, we can go back to that plan. It may be useful, but yeah. So it's varying density throughout the site, trying to correspond with where they are placed within the site and surrounding existing development or not development.
Thank you. But my question was, how does it compare with the rest of the village that surrounds it? I mean, the point is we heard it on the previous application about fitting in with the character of the local village. I mean, nobody's arguing about the principle of development there. That's not a problem. It's just that it does seem like there's an awful lot of houses crammed on a fairly small plot of land. And I think, I mean, I don't know every street in the village, but I certainly do know where the village is. It strikes me as it's significantly more dense than the rest of the village.
Can I bring Sean in and then possibly Nazneen if?
Thank you. This is a matter that was looked at, and it was looked at obviously at outline stage in terms of the number of houses that were being proposed, because the site has planning permission for up to 140 dwellings. But if you do look at Barkway, as with the application site, Barkway does have varying densities. If you look on Main Street, there's high density development in the form of terraced housing with relatively modest gardens. But also in Barkway, you get lower density housing, larger houses with larger gardens. And so that approach to the application site does reflect the varying densities in Barkway itself.
Sorry, and if I can bring that Nazneen.
What we are looking at this evening is reserved matters. So we're not actually looking at the density this evening. It's to determine the appearance, landscaping, layout, and scale. So whilst I appreciate your comment, density is not something to be determined this evening.
Okay. Martin, do you want to?
Just to say that I'll bring it up when we're in debate.
Thank you. Ruth.
Thanks, Ben, for your report. The blue areas are presumably SUDs, are they, on your plan? Can you tell me how likely is it that they're actually going to have water in them?
I think I haven't got a plan up. I think the northwestern sort of area is intended to be more permanently with water, and the ones that run through the centre are they can or cannot be. I think that's correct. It might be a question for the applicant to confirm that, but I'm fairly certain that's right.
I was going to joke we expect a lot of our planning officers, but climatology is possibly not it. But the applicants may be able to add to that.
No, it's just that there are a lot of horrible SUDs in the area where I live that are dry and haven't been appropriately landscaped. And if they're not going to have water in them very often, then what's done with them the landscaping needs to reflect that.
So
to make them look, good.
Yes, so they have been designed as in with what our urban designers would like to see, a 1:3 ratio, and then with wildflower planting within them. So hopefully they'll be.
Yeah.
That was horrible. That was horrible SUDs, you said, wasn't it? I misheard you for a minute.
SUDs.
SUDs.
Yes. And then my second question was really about the master plan compliance. Obviously, we've approved the master plan as part of the outline application. We understand that it's a framework and it doesn't have to be, that there is room for flexibility. You've obviously written a lot in the report about that. Could you just, I think, just to help the committee and to help me sum up the main differences and why you think those are acceptable? I mean, I know the frontage on Royston Road is one of the key ones, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's a bit of, I suppose, a bit of history. The original the flood assessment, I suppose, was not accurate and had to be redone, which changed quite a few things in terms of what you could build within the site. So that's what we dealt with in the previous Section 23 application. And then throughout this whole process, we've had workshops back and forth with the applicants, working with our ecologists, designers, transport officer, and myself to agree on a scheme that we deem would be acceptable. With that, with the master plan and proof applications in mind, and the updated flood assessment. Hopefully that helps answer.
So are you saying you think it's better than the original? It's an improvement on the original.
So, I mean, the master plan was obviously approved. It has some indicative plans, or parameter issues anyway within them. And what we have in front of us now is a detailed scheme. I guess that's much more developed than what we would have had it unseen at the outline stage.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Prescott.
Thank you. I would just say that a half-empty suds is a fantastic habitat for mosquitoes, so it's all something to bear in mind. Can I just, for absolute clarity, the infamous original condition 9, which was the one that said Thames Water has to provide sufficient capacity in the wastewater system, which of course there isn't for the existing village as it stands. We're not taking away that condition stays, so that it cannot start the development until there is a firm, solid, financed commitment from Thames Water to provide sufficient wastewater. Thames Water, who, by the way, are well known for emptying all sorts of things into the beautiful chalk streams in that area. And that's why I'm quite concerned that we're not getting away from the original condition 9.
So no, so reserve matters application doesn't concern itself with that condition.
Louise.
Thank you. So the outline application was for the 140 dwellings and a new shop. And I guess some of the people who probably commented on the outline probably thought the shop was a good thing and something of a benefit to help with all the houses. So the shop has now gone. Can you just explain why that isn't a factor in what we're deciding tonight?
Yep. So it's noted that the shop is absent from the plan. It's probably something that the applicant can help answer as well. As my understanding is that they have gone out to several suppliers, and nobody so far has offered or willing to take up an offer of space. So as part of the original applications, whilst it's included within the description of development, there were no conditions or obligations to bring that shop forward with this application. So whilst there is the absence of a shop, it's not in the officer report. It's not considered a reason to refuse the application. It still could come forward, essentially.
Okay, I have no further questions to the officer. So may I call the first public objector, who is Parish Councillor Graham Swan. Councillor Swan, you've got 3 minutes.
Good evening. First, I'd like to address condition 9, which was attached to the plan application 18015020P. This condition was put in place to ensure there's sufficient capacity within both the sewer network and the wastewater treatment plant. However, the data from CPRE raises serious concerns about the capacity. In 2022, there's 20 recorded spill events and 140 hours. In 2023, it rose to 40 and 627 hours. In 2024, it rose to 70 and a staggering 1,296 hours of foul water going into the rare chalk streams. Thames Water has undertaken and modelling and agreed a phased development plan with Redrow. However, this appears to be no public available information dealing with this modelling or the evidence to justify that phasing approach. We'd like to clarify on the following. What checks and safeguards are going to be put in place to ensure that discharges do not continue to increase? How will it be ensured that Thames Water delivers the necessary infrastructure improvements in line with each phase of development, and how it would be enforced that Redrow adheres to the phasing plans. Secondly, I would like to address design quality. The proposed housing shows no meaningful attempt to reflect the character or architectural even, identity of Barkway. Instead, it resembles a standard generic edge-of-town red road development found in Bunford, Royston or beyond. This fails to respect the distinctiveness and heritage of the village or closely follow the adopted neighbourhood plan, and does not meet the expectations of high-quality, local responsive design. Thirdly, the northern boundary proposed are inadequate. The current planting appears sparse and insufficient to act as an effective barrier. A stronger, deeper landscape buffer is required to protect the rural character of the adjacent stud farm. We'd also like to see any drainage work, boreholes completed at the early stage of development along the northern boundaries, that the planting can be carried out at the earlier stages of the development and before the western side development starts. We'd also like to see a southern aspect of the development, so as we can see the soft planting along the school field. The northern, on the matter of local shop, we strongly object to the removal of the main site plan. It was a part of the inspector's recommendations that the shop is there as a sustainability for the development. Should the council be minded to allow this change, and at the very least a grampian condition should be imposed to guarantee that the shop is delivered before the completion of the site. Turning to water efficiency, Barkway lies within a water stress. It is therefore essential that the development incorporates meaningful water conservation measures, such as the inclusion of rainwater harvesting and grey water recycling. This development will not meet the new future home standard rules that come into effect during the building phase, where all new housing developments must incorporate solar panels. Surely this should be taken into account in this plan. The joint is a narrow single carriageway that is experiencing a large amount of side erosion due to lack of adequate passing places and increased vehicles. A previous application did state that a passing places should be put in for when it was a grain storage barn. However,
may I sum up, please?
In summary, these issues relating to infrastructure, environmental impact, community provision, landscape and design are significant and unresolved. I urge the committee to carefully consider whether this application is in its current form truly meets the standards required.
Thank you, Councillor. Does the committee have any points of clarification from the public speaker? No? Then I'll call our second public objector, who is Clive Hall. Clive, if you have 3 minutes, I'll let you know when you have a minute left.
Chair, councillors, my name is Clive Hall and I'm the current chair of the Conservatives of Thurfield Heath and Greens. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you again so soon about this development in Barkway. Those who remember the speech I gave a few moments ago all know my concern is the way you as a council are not following the MPPF, your local plan, your developer contributions SPD, and the Thurfield Heath SSSI mitigation strategy, all of which are material planning considerations. In this specific case, you departed from the agreed mitigation strategy by not consulting Natural England at all. Natural England have proactively made a comprehensive representation, but the officer has decided not to tackle this objection at this time in the belief that a reserved matters decision does not have to consider aspects of the MPPF like section 193 or indeed the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 and how it impacts on council decision making. The problem you face is that the officer is missing the key issue. Passing a decision to build houses on this site will cause harm to Thurfield Heath SSSI. That fact was agreed with Natural England in 2022 by this council before you adopted your local plan. The MPPF is clear at 193 that harm to a SSSI must at some point in the planning process be mitigated or compensated for, or you should eventually refuse development. I'm happy to share appeal cases with the officer that show this causing the tilted balance to be disengaged and applications being refused at appeal. I'm not going to ask you to refuse this specific reserved matters because of the effort these developers have put in.
1 minute.
I have little doubt that developers like the Conservators want to see the risks removed from this development, and I am sure will recognise that continuing to put money and time into a development with a fundamental objection from Natural England outstanding is not in their best interests. Councillors, only by doing this can you discharge your duty under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 to further the conservation of the features of the Triple SI, to plough on and eventually cause harm to the Triple SI by building these houses is not doing that duty. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do the committee have any points of clarification from the public speaker? No? Okay, then I will call the applicant, Louise Simmons. Louise, you have 5 minutes, and I will let you know when you have a minute left.
Thank you. Good evening. And thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Planning Control Committee for providing me with this opportunity to speak. By way of introduction, my name is Louise Simmons, and I'm Senior Planning Manager at Redrow Homes, South Midlands. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank your officers for their summary of the scheme and the comprehensive report before you, which sets out the scheme's compliance with the adopted development plan. Given this comprehensive summary, I'd like to just touch on a few key areas, if I may. Turning first to the design of the scheme. Throughout the last 18 months, we have sought to work collaboratively with officers and consultees to revise and refine our proposals. We'd like to thank them for their efforts in working with us and for the constructive advice offered, which we have fully incorporated into the scheme before you. In addition, whilst we may not fully agree with one another, we've worked to build a strong relationship with Berkway Parish Council and would like to extend our thanks to them for their positive engagement with us. They have provided invaluable local knowledge and which has been factored into our proposals where possible. From the outset, our strategy has been to ensure that the site achieves the highest possible quality of development. As a company, Redrow is proud of our track record in delivering characterful, high-specification new homes, which create a genuine sense of place and a strong sense of community. We strongly believe that the scheme before you will achieve those aims and will deliver a great place to live, which fully integrates with the Berkway community. In terms of compliance with the Outline Planning Permission, we have sought to ensure that the design of the development respects the parameters established. While some variations have taken place, these have been in the interests of ensuring that the development delivers the highest possible quality of development, and they have been fully justified and accepted by your officers. And I'm also happy to provide a point of clarity if needed on what has changed from those outline parameters. In terms of the design of the homes themselves, these seek to respect and reflect the local Berkway vernacular without representing a pastiche. A variety of unit types, materials and planting have been proposed to create a strong sense of character and public realm, with respect to the original character areas intended by the Outline Planning Permission. The second area I'd like to touch on is the landscaping. We recognise that the northern boundary to the Newsells Park stud is incredibly important. The scheme respects the full 15-metre buffer required by the Outline Planning Permission and includes comprehensive tree and shrub planting to enhance the existing hedgerow boundary. This will provide a meaningful buffer between the development and the stud and will achieve the intention for this area within the site allocation policy. In terms of the 2 bridleways which run through the site, these have been sensitively treated within the scheme and will be widened to accord with County Council guidance in conjunction with advice from the Parish Council. Bridleway 17 in particular will form a key feature of the site running north-south through the central green space and is appropriately connected to both sides of the development to create legibility and wayfinding. Finally, I'd like to touch on the contribution that the development will make to housing supply in North Hertfordshire. You will be aware from your own annual monitoring report that the average house price in the district is 11 times average earnings, which sits well above the regional and national average. The council is also not currently able to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and there is therefore a desperate need for new homes to come forward in the area. The application site is allocated for housing in your adopted development plan and will, as set out by your officers, make an important contribution to housing land supply. Furthermore, the delivery of 56 affordable homes, which represents the full policy requirement of 40%, will make a significant contribution to families in need. As of March, 86 households are living in temporary accommodation within the district. The affordable homes that we will deliver could offer those families a safe, permanent place that they can call home, and the benefit of that we don't believe can be overstated. To conclude, we believe that the scheme before you will deliver a high-quality development which complements and integrates with Barkway. It will deliver numerous benefits, not least the delivery of 140 new homes on an allocated site, which will help to address the district's current housing land supply shortfall and prevent speculative applications from coming forward. I note the comments. Thank you. I note the comments raised by Mr. Hall, and if required, would be happy to offer a point of clarification in relation to Thurfield Heath. As set out within the committee report, the scheme complies with the adopted development plan as a whole, and there are no technical objections or outstanding material considerations which weigh against the scheme. With the tilted balance engaged, we respectfully request that you grant reserve matters consent this evening in line with the recommendation of your officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Are there any points of clarification for members for the applicant? Councillor Bryant.
Could I just go back to the question of the shop? Sorry, I'll be less polite. I'm back to you. Can I go back to the question of the shop that was raised? Is it not right that in fact what developers propose is the building, and then it is for a business to take it over? For instance, like doctor surgeries, provided the building, you can't say there's going to be doctors going to actually want to go in there. Is it not possible to actually have that building as a community space and to see what happens? Because if you've got no building, you're not going to get a shop. Just wanted your opinion on that.
Yes, thank you. So as Ben has set out, there's no planning conditions or obligations that obligate us to provide the shop with the reserve matters for the housing. We have marketed the shop in line with the outline planning permission land use classes that the planning permission has granted for that shop. And the feedback we've had from the 3 agents that we've gone to is that with the market as it currently is, it's not an attractive offer at this moment in time. It will become more attractive when we have quantum of development on the site and people living there, because it'll be more of a going concern.
I'll come back on that.
No shop forever, just no shop now.
Here.
I think we're asking whether it's a case of no shop full stop, or whether no shop initially. So would the building be there if someone wished to? That's the point.
So the Section 106 legal agreement for the planning application, for the outline planning application, secures an obligation on us to market in accordance with a scheme that is first agreed and approved with your officers.
Yeah.
So we are fully committed to doing that, and we will market the site for as long as we are obligated to do. We sincerely hope that the shop will come forward, and we will do everything we can within our power to achieve that.
Thank you. Are there any further questions to the applicant? No. Then I would invite the officer to respond to any of the issues raised. Ben.
Thank you. So I think I'll just touch on the issue of Triple SI and Natural England. Just as this is a reserve matters application and is not a consideration in this case. And so I'd also add that note some other issues raised that are more outline issues. Again, this is reserve matters concerning itself only with scale, appearance, landscaping, and layouts. I've double check. Thank you, Chair. I think that's everything for me.
Thank you, Ben. Any further questions for the planning officer? No. So the officer's recommendation is to grant permission. Unless members are minded to propose a different recommendation on this item, along with material planning reasons, I should be proposing that we grant permission. Therefore, I propose that we grant planning permission subject to A, delegate to the Development and Conservation Manager to 1, resolve any outstanding matters, and 2, update conditions and information with minor amendments as required. B, the conditions as set out in the report with an amendment to condition 6 and an additional condition 9, solar PV installation, as outlined in the supplementary documents. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mantle. We move to debate. Martin.
Thank you for clarifying the business of condition 9. So nothing affects that. The condition 9 is still 150% in place. So thank you for that. I accept the 140 houses. No argument about that. Everybody and all credit to Redrow. I know they've engaged with the parish council quite a lot, to the extent that I've had to withdraw from attending some of the meetings because I didn't want to compromise my position as a member of the planning committee. So thank you for that. My question is, with 140 houses there, do they all have to look like they've been plucked out of a North London suburb, or could some of them perhaps look a little bit more like houses in the local area? I mean, I appreciate it's much cheaper to build them when you're building them the same as when you build them in Birmingham or wherever else you're building them, or Royston, for example. It would be nice if they actually reflected the character of the local village. You can still have your 140 houses, but please, can you make them a little bit more like the houses in the local community? So that's my first question. I'm sure there's a second question, but I'll come back to that in a minute.
There was a question there?
There was a question somewhere in there.
Okay.
Oh, what was? Sorry, I remembered the second question. What was the issue about Natural England? And this business of nobody's engaged with Natural England. That one of the objectors brought up that point. Our regular attendee this evening, who's spoken more than practically anybody else, from Thurfield Heath.
Oh, I can. Shall I do? No, that's fine. So yes, at the. Sorry, let's get my facts straight. I'm trying.
I'm sure I read there was no objection.
Yeah. So sorry. Anne here dealt with the original outline application, and at that time, the application predated the mitigation strategy for Fairfield Heath, which I imagine is why they were not consulted as part of that outline application. But again, in any case, this case tonight is not relevant. It's not. It's a principal issue. It's not a reserved matters issue.
Do we have any other points of debate?
And the design of the house. How do we feel about that, gentlemen and ladies? Oh, my microphone's just popped on. So my question is to the committee, really, how do you feel about the design of the houses? Again, nobody's arguing about the principal development. Nobody's arguing about the 140 houses. I know even the parish council are supportive of that, but they just want it to look a little bit more like the rest of the village. How do we feel?
I'm still coming to terms with the idea that Royston looks like a North London suburb, but wherever it was, to be honest.
Parts of it certainly do.
Not the ones I ever lived in. Yes. Councillor Brown.
I do have some sympathy with what Councillor Prescott has stated about them all looking very similar. We have a Red Road development in Royston, and I think it could be a bit better designed. So yeah, ideally it should reflect the character of the village more. Whether that's enough of a reason to refuse is another matter. I'll leave it there.
Councillor Mantle, Ian.
Yes, we really have only one option, which is to consider and determine the application before us. We can't start trying to redesign it.
Thank you. Do we have any other further debate? I think Councillor Tyson's trying to. You've been silenced, Tom, electronically. Gets worse after 11. Yeah. Have you found your electronic voice, Councillor Tyson?
Let's see, shall we? How are we doing?
ahead.
I have to say, in terms of the house design, I do find it disappointing, and I think that once again, North Arts Council has got these fantastic opportunities to make a really, really positive impression on the district and what we leave behind, because these houses will outlive most of us here. And to settle for second best, I think, is poor show, basically. And I don't know how we can do anything about that here and now. And I'm just really somewhat depressed that we've got to this stage again in another development, which I just think that the look of it is substandard, from even with the prettiest artistic representations and impressions of what it might look like. And the house types are just, that they don't suit Barkway, to my mind. I know Barkway very well. I don't know where we go from there, though.
I think what we have to go is to consider the application in front of us as it stands. Any further debate? Okay, so the officer's recommendation is grant permission, and we have a proposal to grant permission subject to the two conditions I read out. We have a seconder. So if we could move to the vote, please, we'll see all those in favour of granting the application.
Thank you, Chair. That motion's carried.
Thank you. So that brings us even to item 9, which is planning appeals. Sean Greaves to present. Sean.
Thank you, Chair. There's just two items to refer to. One is an appeal decision, which was allowed, which was for 8 gypsy caravan plots at St Albans Road, Codicut. And whilst the inspector found that the development was inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, and that there would be harm to the openness and purpose of the Greenbelt, and that the council does have a 5-year supply of such forms of gypsy sites, it was allowed to be based upon the particular circumstances of the 8 gypsy families who live there and who would be displaced and have nowhere else to go. So it was the very special circumstances, the particular circumstances of the gypsy families on that site. So in terms of all the main issues, the inspector found in the council's favour, but at the end of the day found that the circumstances of the gypsies were constituted very special circumstances, because they would be displaced from that site, and there would be potential conflict with the Equality Act of 2010. And then there is an appeal that has been lodged, I believe. Just bear with me. And I think that's, just scroll up. That's an appeal for household appeal in Baldock for 2-storey side extension. Unless members got any questions about the appeal decision? Nope.
Any questions, Councillor Prescott?
I have to say, I found the appeal decision, the caravan site, was somewhat depressing, because I like to think, I mean, I don't like paying tax. I don't like doing a lot of things that we have to do, but my belief is that we all play by the same set of rules, and I find it somewhat irritating that people can essentially do what they want. Certain people can do exactly what they want and are given weight where none of the rest of us get those benefits. And I'm very cautious in what I say, because I don't want to offend anybody. And I appreciate everybody has their right to their own style of living within reason. But I find it reprehensible that the rest of us all abide by a set of rules, and certain groups of people don't. I find it depressing. I accept it, I understand it, but I just find it a little bit depressing.
Okay. Sean's report was for information only, so no vote is required. And I shall close the meeting. And the next meeting of this committee is Tuesday, the 21st of April. So we might as well just stay here, actually. We just get pizzas or something and stay here. Yeah. Thank you all for your hard work and your attention tonight. Thank you.